Chapter 824. Long Yu didn't care about the others' gazes and walked straight to the counter of the Alliance's trading house. Young Master Long, welcome to the Alliance's trading house. How may I help you? A young man in a manager's uniform greeted Long Yu with a smile. Do you have special beast crystals for sale here? Long Yu nodded. He stood still and asked, I want some special beast crystals, and I also want to use Alliance points to exchange for Shinbi. Your request is really special. The young man's face turned bitter. Our trading house does have special beast crystals, but we don't have much in stock. Most of them will be auctioned at the month's end auction. Of course, if you need special beast crystals of the Transcendent Realm, we can still give you some now. Transcendent Realm special beast crystals aren't very useful to me. Long Yu pondered for a moment. Then can you help me exchange them for Shinbi first? I have 15 million Alliance points here. Can I exchange them for 15 million Shinbi? 15 million. The young man frowned. The amount is a bit large. It will take about 4 hours to prepare them for you. Do you have any other requests? Not for now. That's all. Long Yu shook his head. It was understandable that the Alliance's special beast crystals were auctioned. Long Yu wouldn't break the other party's rules. In any case, he had just broken through to the Immortal King realm. If he broke through again in a short time, it would be easy for his foundation to become unstable and affect his future cultivation. Since he didn't have them now, he could just wait for the next auction. Long Yu wasn't in a hurry. Now, he only needed 10 breaths of time to use any means, which was enough to deal with most situations. Not to mention, Long Yu still had a soul sealing Yang restoration pill and 3 void boundary ghost pills. These were powerful pills to save his life at critical moments. That young man brought Long Yu to a VIP room to rest, then turned around and left to handle the matters of the Shinbi exchange. Shinbi was a physical object, not a string of virtual numbers. Therefore, it would take a lot of time to prepare 15 million Shinbi. While waiting, Long Yu continued to cultivate. Just a little bit more, and he would be able to enter the transcendent state. The reason why he wasn't in a hurry to buy the special crystals and other ancient elixirs was that he hadn't reached the transcendent state yet. It would be a waste to buy them now. Right now, if he wanted to obtain cultivation resources, there were 2 main ways. One was to purchase from the 3 major trading companies, and the other was to exchange within the Alliance of 5 Emperors. The Alliance Trading Company and the Alliance of 5 Emperors were separated. Within the Alliance of 5 Emperors, Long Yu could exchange for some special crystals. However, the items within the Alliance of 5 Emperors were more expensive. For example, special crystals at the Emperor realm. Because they were rare, the starting price was 5 million Alliance points. On the other hand, the 3 major trading companies would sell them for 3 to 4 million at most. The benefit of trading within the Alliance of 5 Emperors was that one could obtain things that couldn't be found in the outside world. For example, divine rune crystals, divine rune source stones, and so on. Even the direct disciples of the 5 Emperors preferred to purchase ordinary cultivation resources from the outside because they were cheap. Of course, the cultivation resources required by the direct disciples of the 5 Emperors were very difficult to purchase in the outside world. Even if they could, they would have to wait until the end of the month auction held by the 3 major trading companies. If they couldn't wait, they would have to pay a higher price and buy them from within the Alliance of 5 Emperors. 4 hours later, the young man from the Alliance Trading Company brought 15 million Shinbi to Long Yu. After he checked the amount, the transaction was completed. Long Yu put away the Shinbi and left the VIP room. Just as he was about to leave the Alliance Trading Company, a young man walked towards him. It was Lei Emperor's 3rd direct disciple, Jibai. What is he doing here? Long Yu's heart stirred, but he didn't think too much about it. This person was also Lei Emperor's direct disciple. It wasn't a big deal for him to come to the Alliance Trading Company. Right now, Long Yu couldn't be bothered to deal with the other party. He didn't want to meet him, so he changed direction and wanted to leave. However, Jibai was still quite unhappy with Long Yu, who asked him to not sell the ancient dragon elephant bone to him for 1 million. Junior apprentice Brother Long, I didn't think we would meet again so soon. Jibai directly walked towards Long Yu, blocking his path with a fake smile. If you still want to use 1 million to buy my ancient dragon elephant bone, I don't think there's anything to talk about. Long Yu stood still and said lightly, Haha, do you really think that I must buy your garbage? Ji Bai said disdainfully. Only you would treat that thing as a treasure. But it doesn't matter. I guess you haven't seen what a real treasure is. After saying this, Ji Bai seemed to have found a sense of superiority. He strode towards the counter of the Alliance Trading Company and said, Call your chief steward here. I heard that the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor sold an ancient supreme grade medicinal pill, the Heavenly Prison Thunder Pill. Is this true? When the ordinary stewards of the Alliance Trading Company saw that it was Ji Bai, they immediately called the chief steward over. The chief steward was an old man at the peak of the Emperor realm. To be in charge of the Alliance Trading Company, his strength and prestige were naturally not ordinary. So it's young Master Ji Bai. What brings you here? The old steward greeted with a smile. Is the Heavenly Prison Thunder Pill that the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor sold in the Alliance still there? Ji Bai asked straightforwardly. Of course it's still there. It's an ancient supreme grade medicinal pill that can enhance one's compatibility with lightning attribute divine runes. It's extremely effective. The Alliance is planning to auction it at the next month's end auction. The old steward nodded and said, If young Master Ji Bai wants to buy this medicinal pill, you should come back at the end of the month's end auction. Isn't the Alliance's purpose of auctioning medicinal pills to earn more shinbi? Ji Bai said indifferently, I'll buy the Heavenly Prison Thunder Pill for 10 million shinbi. How about it? If you really want to buy it at a fixed price, it'll be at least 30 million shinbi. Not a single cent less. The old steward chuckled, not giving Ji Bai any face. If it's put up for auction, many cultivators who comprehend lightning attribute divine runes will be very interested. It can be sold for at least 20 million shinbi, maybe even 30 million. Ji Bai's face darkened. I only have 18 million shinbi. I'll use this to trade for it first, and then I'll owe Senior a favor. How about it? If Senior doesn't agree, I'll have to ask my master to come talk to you. What's the use of owing me a favor? The old steward shook his head. Even if His Excellency Lei Emperor comes in person, he won't force this old man to make a losing deal. Young Master Ji Bai, please go ahead. This conversation fell into Long Yu's ears, causing Long Yu to worry about Ji Bai's intelligence. A fellow like this was Lei Emperor's third direct disciple. Wasn't this a little too embarrassing for His Excellency Lei Emperor? Long Yu recalled that when the 5 emperors came to present their gifts, this Ji Bai didn't come with Lei Emperor. If this fellow had been there, wouldn't something unpleasant have happened? But from this, Long Yu finally knew why this fellow was against him. It was because of Yi Ziwei. Although Lei Emperor had betrothed Yi Ziwei to Long Yu half-jokingly, it was said in front of the 5 emperors. To put it simply, as long as Yi Ziwei and Long Yu didn't object, this matter would basically be considered a success. Long Yu noticed that when Ji Bai was talking to Yi Ziwei, his eyes were full of admiration. Obviously, he really liked this junior sister of his. Now, his junior sister was betrothed to someone else by his master. It was completely normal for Ji Bai to feel a little unbalanced in his heart. However, what Long Yu thought about the most now wasn't about Ji Bai, but the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor that Ji Bai mentioned. What was the relationship between the Heavenly Prison Thunder Pool and the Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor? What did he have to do with Lei Emperor? Long Yu still remembered that the father of this body, Long Zaiqian, had charged into the Heavenly Prison Lightning Pool 20 years ago. Not long ago, the Heavenly Prison Lightning Pool had exploded, and an Emperor Realm expert had rushed out like a bolt of lightning. Could the Emperor Realm expert that Yu Hanxin mentioned be this Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor? Long Yu's heartbeat quickened. He hadn't been able to find Long Zaiqian after searching for so long. Could this Heavenly Prison Thunder Emperor be Long Zaiqian? Thinking of this, Long Yu stepped in the direction where Ji Bai and the old steward were. Junior Long Yu greets Senior Steward. Long Yu stepped forward and cupped his fists in greeting. What do you want again? The old steward glanced at Long Yu. Of course, he knew that Long Yu had exchanged 15 million shinbi just now. However, Could this kid be here for the heavenly prison thunder pill like Ji-Bai? Junior would like to ask about the heavenly prison thunder emperor. How much do you know about this person, senior steward? Long Yu asked respectfully. Oh, you're interested in the heavenly prison thunder emperor? The old steward was quite surprised. He thought that Long Yu was like Ji-Bai, taking advantage of his identity as the personal disciple of the five emperors to take advantage of the situation. Long Yu didn't answer directly. Instead, he glanced at Ji-Bai and said hesitantly, Senior Steward, can I have a word with you? Information about the heavenly prison thunder emperor is very important to me. Then come with me. The old steward nodded and turned to leave. He had actually agreed to Long Yu's request. After all, Long Yu was the personal disciple of the Red Emperor. As long as it didn't involve his own interests, the old steward was willing to give him face. However, the old steward would not give Ji-Bai any face at all when he was here purely to take advantage of the situation. Watching Long Yu leave with the old steward, Ji-Bai was completely dumbfounded. He didn't expect that an ancient supreme grade heavenly prison thunder pill would be so expensive. It was so expensive that he couldn't afford it even if he sold all his assets. Moreover, he didn't expect that Long Yu was also interested in the heavenly prison thunder emperor. Could it be that this kid also wants to get the heavenly prison thunder pill and give it to Junior Sister Yi? Chapter 825. Soon, Long Yu walked out of the Alliance Trading Company with no change in expression on his face. From the elder in charge of the Alliance Trading Company, he learned that the Heavenly Thunder Emperor's name was not Long Zaiqian. Moreover, the Heavenly Thunder Emperor had been famous for hundreds of years and could not be Long Yu's father. However, the elder in charge of the Alliance Trading Company suggested that if Long Yu wanted to find his father who had entered the Heavenly Thunder Pool, he had to ask the Heavenly Thunder Emperor. However, this person was not in the holy city of the five emperors recently and was wandering outside. No one knew where he was recently. The elder in charge said that if the Heavenly Thunder Emperor appeared in the holy city of the five emperors, he would inform Long Yu. For this, Long Yu naturally expressed his gratitude. It's time to go to the Lin Trading Company. Long Yu thought to himself as he walked in the direction of the Lin Trading Company. Not far from the Lin Trading Company, Long Yu saw a familiar person coming out from the entrance of the Lin Trading Company. It was a Peak Emperor realm expert in a light yellow dress, the elder of the Alliance of Five Emperors, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor. Beside the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor, there was a young man in a gray robe. Long Yu had seen this person before. It was Lin Rueicai's distant nephew, Lin Feiyong. He said that he had brought the Alliance of Five Emperors to be apprenticed to the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor. Long Yu. Of course, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor also saw Long Yu. She suddenly smiled sweetly and walked over, waving to Long Yu. What a coincidence. I was just about to look for you. Me too. Long Yu smiled slightly. Lord Heavenly Fragrance Emperor, I wonder if you can deduce who sent people from the Shadow Pavilion to assassinate me? A lot of deduction information has been blocked. Even I can't deduce it. However, to be able to block my deduction, the person who did it must be stronger than me. The Heavenly Fragrance Emperor lowered his voice and said, the Taiwu Abyss does not have that kind of strength. Even in the entire Taiwu Empire, there is no such expert. I understand. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he nodded. In that case, was it really not the Taiwu Empire who wanted to kill him? In this case, it couldn't be the Gongsun clan. Who was it that sent the entire Dark Shadow Pavilion to assassinate Long Yu? Long Yu fell into deep thought. However, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor was obviously not here to watch Long Yu ponder. All right, this is for you. The things inside are half of the assets of the Dark Shadow Pavilion. I promise to give it to you. The Heavenly Fragrance Emperor threw a spatial ring to Long Yu. Long Yu subconsciously stretched out his hand and caught it. His consciousness probed into it, and he discovered that there was actually a huge amount of cultivation resources stored inside. From various grades of pills, to various grades of weapons, to all kinds of martial skill jade slips, there was everything. Among them, the most precious ones were only Great Desolate grade pills, Great Desolate grade combat weapons, Great Desolate grade martial skills, etc. Although they weren't worth much individually, there were a lot of them. If all of them were added up, it would be worth at least 40 to 50 million shinbi. An assassin's organization naturally had a lot of assets. However, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor was willing to give half of it to Long Yu. This showed that he thought highly of Long Yu. "Thank you, my lord." Long Yu put away the spatial ring and smiled slightly. He wouldn't exchange these things for money because it was too troublesome. After all, there were thousands of pills, weapons, and martial skills. Therefore, Long Yu planned to bring these things back to the Heavenly Mandate Manor or Azure Manor. They would become cultivation resources for everyone. In any case, cultivation resources were necessary for the Heavenly Mandate Manor. Instead of buying them with money, it would be better to give them these ready-made resources. It would also save the tedious process of selling and buying. The total value of these resources was as high as 40 to 50 million shinbi. Even for Yu Hanshin, it was an extremely huge asset, let alone for the Heavenly Mandate Manor. Long Yu could foresee that with such a large number of cultivation resources, the cultivation speed of the people in the Heavenly Mandate Manor and Azure Manor would become even faster. The Heavenly Fragrance Emperor wanted to find Long Yu because she wanted to give these cultivation resources to him. This was what she had promised him. Long Yu wanted to find the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor because he wanted to ask about the employer of the Dark Shadow Pavilion. Unfortunately, he didn't get any accurate information. Since the two of them had finished their business, it was time for them to leave. However, at this moment, the young man behind the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor, Lin Feiyong, suddenly spoke. "Even if you are Long Yu, your cultivation is only at the early stage of the King Realm." Lin Feiyong's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction. "If I had the opportunity to step into the illusion realm of the Five Emperors, I might not be any worse than you." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor and said with hatred, "Master, I want to challenge Long Yu." Long Yu looked at the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor with great interest. He wanted to know how the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor would discipline his new disciple. However, to his surprise, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor just smiled and said, "Then go ahead and challenge him." After getting the approval of the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor, Lin Feiyong suddenly became excited. With jealousy and envy in his eyes, he said to Long Yu, "Long Yu, I want to challenge you." As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a pain in his arm. He looked down subconsciously and saw that one of his arms had been cut off by a flying dagger. It fell to the ground, dripping with blood. "Ah!" Lin Feiyong suddenly screamed in pain. "An arm is a lesson for you," Long Yu said calmly. "Your master is the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor. It is not difficult for him to restore your arm. However, this should teach you something and let you know that you should not be too arrogant." Lin Feiyong was crippled with just one move of space penetration. For Long Yu, Lin Feiyong, who was only at the initial stage of the King Realm, was not qualified to be his opponent. Not long ago, he had killed Gongsun Jiaxing, the young master of the Gongsun family, who was at the initial stage of the King Realm with 2 moves. Now that his strength had increased greatly, he would not even need 1 move to kill Lin Feiyong. Challenge? That was purely a waste of Long Yu's time. Since the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor hoped that Long Yu would teach Lin Feiyong a lesson, then Long Yu would do it a little. This should be a big lesson for Lin Feiyong. After making his move, Long Yu withdrew the Nether Dragon Dagger. After bidding farewell to the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor, he strode toward the Lin business. Of course, the Heavenly Fragrance Emperor would not blame Long Yu. In fact, this was exactly what she wanted Long Yu to do. Although she had accepted Lin Feiyong as her disciple, she did not want to see an unruly disciple who did not know his place. That was why she had asked Long Yu to teach Lin Feiyong a lesson. However, she had not expected Long Yu to be so decisive. "Let's go. Return with me." The Heavenly Fragrance Emperor smiled as she watched Long Yu's departing figure. Then, she raised her hand and led Lin Feiyong toward the sacred tower in the holy city of the 5 emperors. Long Yu met Lin Ruizai at the Lin business. He spent 7 million divine coins to buy 2 special Emperor Realm crystals. However, he was still a long way from entering the mid-stage of the King Realm. One special Emperor Realm crystal could increase the range of Long Yu's inner world by 5 kilometers. Now that he had 2 of them, he could increase the range by 10 kilometers. He was still 10 kilometers away from 50 kilometers. However, the Lin business only had these 2 special Emperor Realm crystals. Long Yu could not force them. Lin Ruizai had seen how Long Yu had taught Lin Feiyang a lesson. However, he did not say anything. In fact, he even thanked Long Yu. After arriving at the holy city of the 5 emperors, not only did Lin Feiyang not restrain himself, he became even more arrogant. He did not even show the slightest bit of respect to the heavenly fragrance emperor. Lin Ruizai was looking for someone to teach Lin Feiyang a lesson when Long Yu appeared. To Lin Ruizai, Lin Feiyang was a troublesome matter. Fortunately, he had handed him over to the heavenly fragrance emperor. Given the heavenly fragrance emperor's personality, she would definitely teach Lin Feiyang well and guide him onto the right path. Long Yu left the Lin business and headed for the Su Medicine Hall. He met the witch, Su Ningguan. Long Yu had never had a good impression of this woman. When he was still pretending to be Wang Tai, Su Ningguan had even wanted to kill Wang Tai. Perhaps Su Ningguan didn't know, but Long Yu had remembered it. Of course, Long Yu would not show his dissatisfaction now that he was going to trade with the Su Medicine Hall. Our Su Family Medicine Hall doesn't have Emperor Realm special crystals, but we do have many ancient rank pills. In fact, we even have upper rank ancient rank pills that contain 2 to 3 times more spirit energy than Emperor Realm special crystals. Su Ning expressed a warm welcome to Long Yu's arrival and directly took out an ancient high-grade pill. How much? Long Yu asked. The original price is at least 8 million. I'll take 5 million. Su Ningguan said with a smile. Deal. Long Yu knew that Su Ningguan had lowered the price because he was the Red Emperor's personal disciple. She wanted to gain his favor. Unfortunately, Long Yu did not have a good impression of Su Ningguan. After the trade, Long Yu was only left with 3 million Shinbi and 2 million alliance points. This amount of wealth would be considered quite rich for an ordinary person, but for Long Yu, it made him a pauper again. One had to know that he had obtained 100 million alliance points back then. However, spending these alliance points had brought him a considerable amount of rewards. First, he had repaired the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda and turned it into a top ancient rank combat weapon, on the same level as the Netherworld Dragon Blade. Moreover, since the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda was a defensive type combat weapon, its defensive capabilities were extremely strong. After activating the 9 Nether Heavenly Screen, it could even withstand the attacks of any Emperor Realm expert. Of course, the 9 Nether Heavenly Screen could only be used 5 times a day, but it had already greatly increased Long Yu's survivability. With the help of the Red Emperor's Cloak, even an Emperor Realm expert would not be able to defeat Long Yu in one go. Long Yu was about to bid farewell to Su Ningguan, but Su Ningguan smiled and said with interest, Long Yu, perhaps I should call you the impersonator? Oh, what do you mean? Long Yu's heart skipped a beat, but his expression remained unchanged as he asked indifferently. Wang Tai, Qin Yashuang. Chapter 826. Hearing Su Ningguan's words, Long Yu was startled, but on the surface he smiled. So you saw through it. However, I've never heard that the Su Medicine Hall has a relationship with the glorious Sun Inn. Of course, Long Yu didn't say this without reason. He disguised himself as the middle-aged Wang Tai and disguised himself as Qin Yashuang to participate in the Su Medicine Hall's auction. From start to finish, the only flaw was the glorious Sun Inn. Qin Yashuang stayed at the glorious Sun Inn and didn't leave. However, after Long Yu participated in the Su Medicine Hall's auction, he also returned to the glorious Sun Inn as Qin Yashuang. In other words, only the people of the glorious Sun Inn could come to this conclusion. However, Long Yu wasn't afraid that Su Ningguan would leak this information. At most, she wanted to use this to threaten Long Yu. Unfortunately, how could Long Yu be threatened by others? We don't have any relationship with the glorious Sun Inn. Su Ningguan said faintly. If we don't have any relationship, then the reputation of the glorious sun has nothing to do with you. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. It seems that if I plan to leak the secret of the glorious sun and ruin the reputation of the glorious sun then it has nothing to do with you. Goodbye. After saying this, Long Yu turned around and left. How did Su Ning discover that Wang Tai and Qin Shuang were disguised by Long Yu? There was only one possibility, and that was the glorious sun leaking the secret. As for saying that this was just Su Ning's guess, that was even more impossible. If it was just a guess, why would she say it and use it as a tool to threaten Long Yu? Long Yu would use the reputation of the glorious sun to threaten Su Ning. Although Su Ning denied her relationship with the glorious sun Long Yu didn't care. Even if she made a mistake, it wouldn't affect Long Yu. Seeing Long Yu turn around and leave, Su Ning couldn't help but bitterly laugh. Young Master Long, I'll compromise. I definitely won't tell anyone about what I said just now. I hope you will do the same. As you wish. Long Yu didn't even turn his head. He just smiled and left the Su Medicine Hall. Sure enough, the Su Medicine Hall and the glorious sun were related. Long Yu deduced this and used it to threaten Su Ning. Otherwise, if Su Ning revealed the secret that Long Yu could disguise himself as someone else, it might not be fatal to Long Yu, but it would be very troublesome. The confrontation between Long Yu and Su Ning this time was extremely short, but Su Ning didn't dare to underestimate Long Yu anymore. After leaving the Su Medicine Hall, Long Yu packed his things and prepared to teleport to the North Snow Empire to visit the people in the heavenly mandate manner. His final destination was the ancient relic mentioned by the Death Envoy in the Shenluo Empire, which was the neighbor of the North Snow Empire. Originally, Long Yu wanted to explain the situation over there to the Red Emperor, but before the Red Emperor came back, he directly wrote down the information about the winged god race exotic beasts, the best way to deal with the 12 nests of the winged god race, and his own requirements in a jade slip. He gave it to Qin Yashuang and asked her to give it to the Red Emperor when he came back. Qin Yashuang naturally listened to Long Yu's instructions. Long Yu came up with a plan for the extermination of the 12 nests of the winged god race. Under the guidance of the Death Envoy, he came up with a wonderful way to minimize the losses of the alliance of 5 emperors. As for Long Yu's request, he needed to use the next 100 million alliance points to exchange for 3 divine source stones. This request wasn't too much. He believed that the Red Emperor would agree. After arranging all this, Long Yu directly paid the remaining 2 million alliance points and added 1 million Shinbi. He chose to teleport to the North Snow Empire on the teleportation formation level of the Sacred Tower. He also exchanged for the space attribute exotic beast crystals needed to teleport to the North Snow Empire twice. The power consumed by the teleportation formation came from the exotic beast crystals of the space attribute. Every exotic beast of the winged god race had one. Long Yu used 2 million Shinbi to directly purchase tens of thousands of exotic beast crystals of different levels of the space attribute for him to use when he returned to the North Snow Empire. The reason why he spent a total of 3 million Shinbi was that he needed to teleport himself back to the North Snow Empire once. He also needed to select other people from the Heavenly Mandate Manor to come to the Holy City of the 5 Emperors. They would live in the Dragon Domain and cultivate rapidly in the Star Spiritual Formation. To return to the Holy City of the 5 Emperors from the North Snow Empire, they needed to be divided into 2 batches. The others would come first, and Long Yu would first go to the ancient relic and successfully obtain what he needed before returning. The teleportation fee of 3 million Shinbi was almost unimaginable for ordinary people. But for Long Yu, it was within an acceptable range. After paying, not only did Long Yu get a chance to teleport to the North Snow Empire, but he also received 10,000 exotic beast crystals of the space attribute. He had to use the power in these exotic beast crystals himself to activate the teleportation formation and return from the North Snow Empire to the Holy City of the 5 Emperors. North Snow Empire. North Snow Empire. Long Yu's figure appeared in the depths of the North Snow Imperial Palace, which he had never been to before. The place where the teleportation formation was built was, of course, the most heavily guarded place. Long Yu soon saw Yuhanxin's mother. She still looked very young and beautiful, but her eyebrows were full of sorrow. It could be seen that this woman was expecting someone else to appear when the teleportation formation lit up. Unfortunately, the one who appeared was Long Yu, which made her very disappointed. Long Yu knew that Yuhanxin's father was the founder of the North Snow Empire and belonged to the Ice Phoenix clan. Unfortunately, Yuhanxin's father died, and her mother handed everything over to Yuhanxin to manage. As for herself, she did not care about the affairs of the world. Now, Yuhanxin's mother naturally hoped to see Yuhanxin. Unfortunately, Yuhanxin did not come back. The one who came back was Long Yu. I saw Miss Yu in the holy city of the 5 emperors. She is fine. Please rest assured, senior. Long Yu said to Yuhanxin's mother. Yuhanxin's mother nodded and said, "Thank you, please." Under the escort of many North Snow Empire's demon cultivators, Long Yu left the North Snow Imperial Palace and came to the streets of the North Snow Imperial City that he had not seen for a long time. Before leaving the palace, he had disguised himself as Qin Yashuang. A woman in white walked on the streets of the North Snow Imperial City. Her destination was the Azura Manor. No one knew that Long Yu had secretly returned to the North Snow Empire. When Long Yu disguised himself as Qin Yashuang and arrived near the Azura Manor, he found that the atmosphere of the entire Azura Manor had become quite strange. The doors were closed, and no one came out. Long Yu furrowed his brows and knocked on the door. Soon, someone came to open the door. The person who opened the door was one of General Hui Yuanbai's subordinates. He had already stepped into the Imperial Path Mystic Realm. The Divine Ability Mystic Realm kid in the past was now an early-stage King Realm expert. When there were enough cultivation resources, the cultivation speed of the elites under Hui Yuanbai's command was not slow. I am Lord Long Yu's maid. This is Lord Long Yu's identity card. He told me that you might need help here, so he sent me over to take a look. Long Yu disguised himself as Qin Yashuang and said to the person directly. The person was skeptical. Wait a moment, I will ask the general to come over. He couldn't make the decision himself, so he could only ask Hui Yuanbai to come over. Soon, the old General Hui Yuanbai appeared in front of Long Yu. He looked at Long Yu carefully and waved his hand. Come in. We have indeed encountered some trouble. However, if it is only you, I am afraid you will not be able to solve it. As Long Yu followed him into the Azura Manor, he asked, what trouble did Azura Manor encounter? Not long ago, a small team recruited by Azura Manor was killed in the North Snow Imperial City. We have confirmed the identity of the killer. It must be the remnants of the Long Manor and Falling Moon Manor. Without a doubt, their manor lord and most of their forces were annihilated while chasing after Long Yu. That is why they are seeking revenge on Azura Manor. Hui Yuanbai explained, May I know if you have any way to solve this problem? Long Yu frowned. What about the law enforcers in the city? The current law enforcers are still led by the Silver Fox King. The Silver Fox Manor was disbanded by Lord Yuhanxin because of Long Yu. Do you think the Silver Fox King will help us deal with this matter? Hui Yuanbai shook his head and sighed. I see. It seems like without Lord Yuhanxin around, the people of the North Snow Empire are not obedient. Long Yu narrowed his eyes. Lord Yuhanxin? Hui Yuanbai felt a little strange. Why would this woman, the so-called maid of Long Yu, address her in such a way? Lord Yuhanxin is the Red Emperor's personal disciple. Of course, I have to address her as Lord. Long Yu smiled casually. In his heart, he was thinking that he should address Yuhanxin as senior sister instead. Of course, no one in the entire North Snow Empire knew that Long Yu had also become the Red Emperor's personal disciple. All right, what is the cultivation realm of the strongest expert of the Long Manor and Falling Moon Manor? Long Yu asked. Since he was here, he naturally had to solve the problem for Azura Manor. Otherwise, how could the people of Azura Manor cultivate and become stronger? Emperor Realm. Hui Yuanbai thought for a moment before replying. The main forces of Long Manor and Moonfall Manor have been destroyed. In fact, these two manors exist only in name. The strongest is the Manor Lord of Moonfall Manor, who is rumored to be in mid-Emperor realm. Long Yao and Long Zhang's uncles are also in early Emperor realm. They should be the only two Emperor realm cultivators left. Does Azura Manor not have a single Emperor realm expert after so many years of development? Long Yu asked. No, there are some Emperor realm cultivators who wanted to join us, but the strongest among us is only a mid-king realm cultivator. We were afraid that we wouldn't be able to suppress them, so we refused to let them in. Hui Yuan Bai said regretfully. All right, is Lord Shuchan here? I'll discuss it with her. Since I'm here, I'll help you solve all your problems. Long Yu asked, you can help us? Hui Yuanbai's eyes widened as he sized up Long Yu. She's just an early king realm lass. How can she handle two Emperor realm experts? Don't worry, there won't be a problem. Long Yu smiled faintly, but killing intent continued to gather in his heart. The Long Manor and Falling Moon Manor were still targeting his people. They were courting death. So what if they were Emperor realm experts? Although the young lord of the Dark Shadow Pavilion was only a late king realm cultivator, it was a piece of cake for him to assassinate an early or even mid-Emperor realm expert. Chapter 827 North Snow Royal City. From the back door of the Azura Manor, a group of martial cultivators sneaked out sneakily. These were the members of the Azura Manor, and their leader was a one-star general. At this time, he had already stepped into the early king realm. He led 4 young men from the Azura Manor who were at the transcendent secret realm, leaving the Azura Manor through a small path, heading straight for a trading center in the city. One of them was none other than Long Yu. However, the current Long Yu was a young woman clad in white robes. She followed Jiang Yixing out of the Azura Manor, acting very sneakily. This was Long Yu's first plan, to lure the snake out of its hole. Since those people dared to make a move in the North Snow Royal City, the appearance of Jiang Yixing's group would definitely attract their attention, right? Long Yu couldn't be bothered to find the gathering place of those people. She would just kill them and be done with it. Jiang Yixing led the group on a small path, as if to prevent others from following them. But in fact, he was luring the enemy out. Only by walking on a small path with fewer people would it be easier to deal with this kind of problem. However, Jiang Yixing and the others were skeptical about whether Long Yu's maid could solve this problem. With regards to the surviving members of the Dragon Manor and Falling Moon Manor who had tried to assassinate the members of the Azura Manor, Jiang Yixing and the others naturally hated her to the core. Now that Maid Long Yu had come to help them, they naturally had to believe her. For this reason, Jiang Yixing personally took action. After walking for a long distance, nothing out of the ordinary happened, causing them to wonder if the people of the Long Manor and Falling Moon Manor did not notice them. However, very quickly, Long Yu felt that something was amiss. Stop, we're surrounded. In a small alley, Long Yu's maid raised her hand and said softly. Jiang Yixing and the others immediately stopped in their tracks. At this time, from all 4 directions of the alley, as well as in the sky, a total of 10 powerful martial cultivators appeared and surrounded them. Jiejia, I didn't expect you to show yourselves. How reckless. One of the middle-aged men leading the group stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. With a sinister smile, he said, People of the Azura Manor, since you've offended our Long Manor, just wait for your death. Even if our Long Mansion only has a little bit of power left, it's still enough to destroy you. A total of 12 martial cultivators from a dragon house moved out together, surrounding Jiang Yixing, Long Yu, and the others, and completely sealing off the space around them. There was actually someone who comprehended spatial divine runes among them. However, to Long Yu's disappointment, the strongest amongst the 12 Dragon Mansion martial cultivators were only at the advanced stage of the King Realm, and there were no Emperor Realm experts amongst them. Who are you? Maid Long Yu raised her head and looked at the middle-aged man with a sinister smile. The captain of the Long Mansion's guards, Long Zhua. The middle-aged man with a sinister smile said contemptuously, Seeing that you're about to die, I'll tell you my name. Now die. As soon as he finished speaking, Long Zhua raised his hand. His entire body shone with a golden light, and a wave of light attribute divine runes condensed into a whirlwind, whistling towards the group. Jiang Yixing and the others' expressions changed when they saw this. This was an opponent at the advanced stage of the King Realm, Longjue, and he seemed to be extremely powerful. If the Maid of Longyu did not have any good ideas, then they would all have to die here. Fallen Dark Star. Longyu raised his hand, and fallen dark stars appeared one after another around his body. There were only 3 fallen dark stars, but they linked together to form a starry wall, firmly blocking the light attribute whirlwind released by Longjue. More fallen dark stars flew in all directions, and in a breath's time, they exploded. Star explosion. The mighty power of the ancient transcendent rank martial art directly blew the 11 Long clan disciples who were about to launch an attack apart from Longjue into pieces. Among the 11 Long family disciples, there was no lack of experts at the mid-stage of the King Realm, but they were all defeated by a single move from Longyu, dying without a burial place. The reason I kept you alive isn't because I can't kill you, but because I want you to lead the way. Longyu spoke indifferently, and then a skeletal arm appeared out of thin air and directly grabbed Longjue. So long as Longyu willed it, he could immediately crush Longjue. The 12 members of the Long family besieged him, but Longyu broke through their siege in an instant, killed 11 of them, and even restrained the last captain, Longjue. This scene happened too quickly, and Jiang Yixing and the others didn't even have the time to react before the situation had completely turned around. She's so powerful. Jiang Yixing looked at Maid Longyu, and little stars appeared in his eyes. This is like a goddess that descended from the heavens. On the surface, she looks to be at the initial stage of the King Realm, but she's restrained Longjue, who's at the advanced stage of the King Realm, as soon as she attacked. It seemed as if the advanced stage of the King Realm was nothing to Maid Longyu. In comparison, even if Longyu came back personally, he probably wouldn't be able to do this, right? Jiang Yixing and the others immediately thought. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the Maid Longyu in front of them was Longyu himself in disguise. The reason why Longyu wanted to disguise himself was because he now knew that the Emperor Realm experts could deduce his location. If the Emperor Realm experts of the Shenluo Empire or the Cloud Empire deduced that he was here, it would be troublesome. Cough. Cough. Longjue's entire body was tightly gripped by the skeletal arm, and even breathing became extremely difficult. His eyes were filled with fear. He never thought that the woman in the initial stage of the King Realm in front of him would be so powerful. The situation changed in an instant, and Longjue couldn't think straight for a moment. Now, he only wanted to know who this woman in white was. Take me to the gathering place of the Long family. Isn't the Crown Prince Long, Yao's uncle, there? Take me to see him. Longyu said coldly, and with a thought, the skeletal arm exerted more force, almost crushing Longjue. I'll take you there. I'll take you there. Longjue couldn't take it anymore and immediately begged for mercy. Only then did Longyu slightly loosen the skeletal arm, causing it to dissipate in midair. He wasn't afraid that Longjue would escape. Since he could catch him once, Longyu could catch him again. Lady Qin, could it be that the technique you used just now was taught to you by Longyu? I remember that the skeletal technique seemed to be one of Longyu's innate theurgy. Jiang Yixing looked at the maid of Longyu and said with some surprise, I'll tell you in detail when we get back. Now you guys go back first. I'll kill all the people of the Long family before coming back. Longyu smiled and directly forced Longjue to lead the way. Soon they left the alley. In a Long family residence in the city. Longyu didn't expect that the people of the Long family would still stay in the Long family residence. But this was also good. It would make it convenient for Longyu to attack the root of the problem and kill all of them in one go. Haha, you're too arrogant. No matter how our Long family has declined, we still have Emperor Realm experts. You actually dared to attack us. You're dead. You're dead. Longjue, who was originally leading the way, directly laughed crazily. He wanted to use the divine rune of space to instantly escape. Unfortunately, before his figure could disappear, a pitch-black sharp blade directly slashed across his neck. Longyu directly attached the divine rune of 9 nether on the nether dragon blade and killed Long Zhua in one go. Even the physical body of a late-stage King Realm Martial Cultivator couldn't withstand the current attack of Long Yu. Because he was also in the early-stage King Realm now, it couldn't be compared to when he was in the Divine Secret Realm. If he were to face the so-called geniuses of the late-stage King Realm, like the Silver Fox King and Jing Tianxing, it would definitely be extremely easy. After killing Long Zhua, a furious shout sounded in the Long family residence. Who dares to behave atrociously in my Long family residence? Do you really think that there's no one in my Long family residence? Following this shout, a series of martial cultivators of the Long family residence rose into the air from the Long family residence. From front to back, they quickly surrounded Long Yu. The person in the lead was an Emperor Realm expert with an unshaven beard. He looked like a middle-aged man, but in reality, he was a middle-aged dragon demon. This person's name was Long Yanghua, and he was the younger brother of the Long family residence's patriarch. He was the uncle of Crown Prince Long Yao. After the patriarch and the others died, Long Yanghua naturally became the patriarch of the Long family residence. Are all the remnants of the Long family residence here? If that's the case, Dai. Long Yu glanced around. There were hundreds of people surrounding him, and all of them gathered within a radius of 300 meters. All of them were eager to kill Long Yu. However, Long Yu was the first one to make a move. 9 Nether Heavenly Light. The 9 Nether Divine characters instantly spread out from Long Yu's body and enveloped all the martial cultivators of the Long family residence. Then, he activated the 9 Nether Blade without hesitation. Countless blades condensed in the 9 Nether Heavenly Light and slashed towards the Long family residence. In just an instant, hundreds of people died under this move. Star Shackle. Long Yu condensed a dark star and directly targeted the Emperor Realm Long family residence's patriarch, Long Yanghua. Long Yanghua snorted coldly and instantly transformed into his dragon demon form. A long dragon demon attacked furiously, and his Emperor Realm aura completely dispersed the 9 Nether Heavenly Light around him. However, a dark star appeared out of thin air and completely shackled him. After a breath's time, Long Yanghua shattered the dark star. Just as he was about to make a move, he was greeted by Long Yu's 9 Nether Dragon Breath. The pitch-black dragon breath completely enveloped Long Yanghua and caused great damage to his body. However, he was an Emperor Realm expert after all. This was not enough to kill him. However, Long Yu was not in a hurry. With a thought, he instantly activated the Shadow Kill art. In the 9 Nether Heavenly Light, countless shadows instantly condensed into pitch-black sharp blades and began a brutal massacre of the other Long family residence disciples. Long Yu did not think there was anything wrong with this. Since you chose to be my enemy, I will slaughter all of you. Otherwise, I will be the one suffering. Other than Long Yanghua himself, no one in the entire Long family residence could resist Long Yu's killing move. The 9 Nether Heavenly Light was like hell for the Long family residence disciples who were shrouded in it. Chapter 828. When Long Yu's 9 Underworld Heavenly Light continued to shine, enveloping the entire Long residence, everyone except Long Yanghua died under the blade of the 9 Underworld. However, because of this, Long Yu's energy was being depleted rapidly. Fortunately, he had exchanged for quite a number of energy recovery elixirs from the 5 Emperors Alliance, as well as shadow-type exotic beast crystals. As long as he absorbed 1 or 2 of them, he would be able to recover all the energy he had expended. It'll be much easier to clean them up if they're in the Mid-King realm. But it's not difficult even now. Long Yu thought that he wouldn't be a match for the Mid-Emperor Realm Master of the Falling Moon Manor in his current state. He took out the 2 special Emperor Realm crystals and the ancient upper-rank pill he'd prepared beforehand. He'd bought the former from the Lin merchant firm and the latter from the Su Medicine Hall. Long had spent 12 million Shinbi on these 3 items, but their effects were obvious. Long Yu quietly returned to his original form in the pitch-black 9 Underworld Heavenly Light. He no longer disguised himself and began to absorb the rich world energy from the 3 items with the help of the Void Nether Dragon Blade. His inner world and his dantian began to expand once more. Strands of star energy from the Dubhe star merged into Long Yu's body, increasing the total amount of world energy he could absorb. An ordinary martial cultivator would only be able to expand their inner world by 5 kilometers at most. However, Long Yu had the void nether dragon blade and could completely absorb the energy from the pills. Long Yu was ready to break through the remaining 30 kilometers from the Mid-King realm. The 9 underworld heavenly light covered the entire residence. Soon, most of the people in the residence were dead. Not even their corpses were left behind. They were all cut into pieces by the 9 underworld blade. Only Long Yanghua and some other late King realm martial cultivators were still resisting. Since they were Emperor realm cultivators, they wouldn't be killed so easily by Long Yu. However, it was impossible for them to fight back against Long Yu. Who dares cause trouble in the North Snow Imperial City? Right at this moment, a group of law enforcers flew over swiftly from afar, and the person in the lead was the Silver Fox King who wore a silver mink coat. Presently, he was still at the advanced stage of the King realm. Beside the Silver Fox King was his father. He was also a mid-Emperor realm expert and had flown over with the law enforcement team. It was obvious that he had received news that the Dragon Manor had been attacked. Over 1,000 members of the North Snow Empire's law enforcement team surrounded the entire Long Manor. They even set up a space ceiling formation to prevent the people inside from escaping. This black mist seems to be Long Yu's doing. The Silver Fox King's handsome face was cold and detached. He led a group of subordinates and stood guard outside. He didn't rush in immediately, because the enemy must have at least the strength of an emperor since they dared to attack the Long Manor. The law enforcement team of the North Snow Empire was basically useless in this situation. The only person the Silver Fox King could rely on was his father, the Silver Fox Emperor. If it's really him, I'll make sure he dies without a burial ground today. The Silver Fox Emperor was a middle-aged man with a steady look. At this moment, his face was gloomy as he looked at the black fog of the 9 underworld's heavenly light. Why had the Silver Fox Manor been taken down? It was all because of Long Yu. Now that the Silver Fox Emperor had seen Long Yu, who had destroyed his foundation of many years, how could he let him go so easily? Of course, he had never thought that the reason Yu Hanxin had taken down the Silver Fox Manor was because they wanted to kill Long Yu and take away Long Yu's Dubhe Chi channeling technique. If they weren't greedy, why would Yu Hanxin target them? They were just asking for trouble. Of course, the Silver Fox Emperor and the Silver Fox King didn't realize this. Even if they did, they wouldn't admit that they were in the wrong. They would only blame it on Long Yu. Very soon, the 9 underworld's heavenly light was dispersed by Long Yanghua and the others again. The figure that appeared in the center was beyond everyone's expectations. Long Yu, Long Yanghua, the Silver Fox King, and the Silver Fox Emperor were all stunned. The Silver Fox King and the Silver Fox Emperor were still fine. They were stunned because they didn't expect Long Yu to overestimate himself and come back to cause trouble. As for Long Yanghua, he was completely stunned. Weren't they dealing with a woman dressed in white just now? Why did it suddenly turn into Long Yu? Could it be that the woman just now was Long Yu in disguise? Thinking about it, it made sense. Otherwise, how could this person know Long Yu's martial skill? Long Yu's figure appeared, and his aura was constantly rising. His inner world soon reached a radius of 90 miles. Once he finished absorbing the final ancient elixir's spiritual chi, he would be able to step into the middle stage of the King realm. However, at this time, the Silver Fox King and the others obviously wouldn't give Long Yu time. God is helping me, Father. This Long Yu actually took the initiative to cause trouble in the city. This is a great opportunity for us to get rid of him. The Silver Fox King's eyes lit up. Not bad. The Silver Fox Emperor nodded his head in satisfaction. It seemed that he was about to get his revenge. How could a mere early-stage King realm kid survive after encountering a middle-stage Emperor realm expert like him? Unless Yu Hanxin came back now, but everyone knew that the probability of that happening was too small. How dare you cause trouble in the North Snow Imperial City? Members of the law enforcement team surround the entire Long residence and stop anyone from escaping. The Silver Fox King shouted, and thousands of members of the law enforcement team responded loudly. Haha, we're the law enforcement team when the people of the Long residence caused trouble. Long didn't expect that the Silver Fox King and the law enforcement team would arrive first. However, it didn't matter. The Silver Fox Emperor was only a middle-stage Emperor realm expert. If Long Yu broke through, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with the Silver Fox Emperor. The people of the Long residence are law-abiding. When did they cause trouble? The Silver Fox King replied indifferently. Then he turned around and said, Father, I'll leave this thief to you. He wasn't stupid. He saw that even Long Yanghua couldn't stop Long Yu from causing trouble in the Long residence by himself. He was only a late-stage king realm expert, so he would only be courting death if he went over. Therefore, he had to ask his father to take action. Only then would he have a chance to kill Long Yu. After all, as long as Long Yu was dead, even if Yu Hanqing came back, she couldn't punish them. Of course, no one knew that Long Yu was already the Red Emperor's personal disciple. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to attack Long Yu even if they were given 10,000 times the courage. Even if they killed Long Yu, the Red Emperor would be furious. Even an empire wouldn't be able to withstand the anger of the Red Emperor, let alone the Long residence. Unfortunately, they didn't know Long Yu's current identity. This gave them the courage to take action. The Silver Fox Emperor pretended not to know that it was Long Yu. He moved and attacked immediately. Long Yu was just a step away from entering the middle-stage king realm. Of course, he couldn't fight the Silver Fox Emperor now. He just chuckled softly and then disappeared in a flash. No one saw Long Yu's body turn into a speck of dust and slowly fall to the ground. Everyone thought that Long Yu had used some kind of invisibility technique. Many members of the law enforcement team used their detection techniques related to the divine text of light. Countless rays of holy light shone on the entire Long residence and the surrounding area, trying to find Long Yu, who was invisible. Of course, all of them failed. Even the Silver Fox Emperor took out a silver mirror combat weapon and let the silver mirror shine on the entire area. But he still couldn't find any trace of Long Yu. It was as if Long Yu had really disappeared from the world. Where did that brat go? The Silver Fox Emperor's face suddenly turned gloomy. He thought that he could kill Long Yu in an instant, but he didn't expect Long Yu to be so elusive. He actually disappeared under the noses of so many people. I don't know, but this brat is very strange. You must be careful at all times. Long Yanghua led the few remaining people of the Long Mansion and said with a face full of hatred, even if they won this battle, the Long Mansion could be considered to have completely declined. The entire Demon Dragon tribe was almost completely wiped out. Moreover, they didn't manage to kill Long Yu. If Long Yu was given a chance to make a comeback, Long Yanghua didn't doubt that he would also die in the hands of Long Yu. Therefore, he could only rely on the Silver Fox Emperor now. The Silver Fox Emperor immediately led his people to search the city. But he didn't know that Long Yu had turned into a speck of dust and landed in the Long residence. He himself was in the space of the Book of Dark Shadows, making a breakthrough. 100 miles, it's a success. With the help of 2 special crystals of the Emperor Realm and an ancient high-grade elixir, Long Yu had successfully expanded his inner world to 100 miles. This would be a transformation of his strength. Without any hesitation, Long Yu began using the power of his inner world to temper his fleshly body, further strengthening it. Most importantly, all the meridians in his body had been tempered to the point that they were as tough as steel. Mid-stage King Realm. From now on, Long Yu could use any method without any restrictions, be it martial arts or supernatural powers. It would be incomparably smooth to use. The time Long Yu used to break through was not long. In fact, it only took him a few dozen breaths. When he reappeared in the Long residence, the Silver Fox King had just led his people to search the surroundings. As for the Silver Fox Emperor and Long Yanghua, they wanted to enter the Long residence to discuss in detail. Unfortunately, when the two of them wanted to step into the main hall of the Long residence, something strange happened. A wave of divine character power of the phantom spiral instantly bloomed under their feet and enveloped them in an instant. Their expressions changed drastically and they immediately released their aura, wanting to break the sealing power of the phantom spiral. However, what followed was a terrifying dragon breath of the 9 underworlds. No, it was not just one breath, but 2, 3, 7 breaths. Long Yu had just broken through to the mid-stage king realm. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the two of them. After all, talking to these people was a complete waste of breath. In that case, he might as well just kill them and be done with it. Therefore, he temporarily hid himself and launched a sudden attack, bursting out dragon breath of the 9 underworlds one after another. There was no need to doubt the destructive power of the 9 underworlds' dragon breath. And after Long Yu stepped into the intermediate stage of the king realm, his basic strength became even stronger, and the destructive power of this 9 underworlds' divine ability increased by several times. Chapter 829. Long Yanghua, who was only at the initial stage of the Emperor realm, was the first to succumb. He couldn't withstand the dragon breaths of the 9 underworlds, even though he was constantly deploying defensive techniques. He had no choice but to use the origin power of his inner world to increase his speed. He retreated backwards like a streak of golden light, leaving Long Yu's range of attacks. At the same time, Long Yanghua had transformed into a dazzling golden flood dragon. However, Long Yu was the first to realize that he wanted to escape. He immediately used the Dark Star Imprisonment, trapping the golden flood dragon within it. Following that, the Netherworld spiral runes blossomed beneath his feet, as well as the soul imprint rainbow and the hand of the 9 underworlds. Long Yanghua realized that he couldn't escape and wanted to attack Long Yu himself. Unfortunately, Long Yu's continuous attacks overwhelmed him, and he was completely suppressed. Long Yu's attacks were too much for him to deal with. Long Yanghua's strength couldn't compare to the young master of the Dark Shadow Pavilion. So Long Yu could easily suppress him. In the span of a few breaths, Long Yanghua's flood dragon body was riddled with holes. The divine characters of the 9 underworlds had long since corroded his entire body. No matter what method or martial technique he used, he couldn't withstand Long Yu's attacks. "You're courting death." It was at this moment that the mid-stage Emperor Realm Silver Fox Emperor's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He finally broke free from the countless dragon breaths of the 9 underworlds and attacked Long Yu, while Long Yu was busy dealing with Long Yanghua. His entire body was enveloped in the divine characters of ice and space. He was like a sharp blade that could cut through space itself as he attempted to cleave Long Yu in half. Long Yu was almost completely unfazed by the mid-stage Emperor Realm's powerful attacks. He only lifted his hand lightly when his opponent was about to reach him. Ancient Dragon Bone Tower, an enormous, simple, yet magnificent ancient tower, instantly appeared on the battlefield. Immediately afterwards, Long Yu activated a technique that was compatible with the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Dragon Bone Break. The entire ancient dragon skeleton tower was aimed directly at the Silver Fox Emperor, who was launching a sneak attack. Then it began to spin rapidly like a high-speed drill, breaking through the air. At that moment, the surrounding space was completely sealed. Long Yu realized that even his Path of 9 Spirits was unable to break through the space here. Divine fusion of harmony. With a thought, Long Yu sensed the aura of the ancient dragon skeleton tower. His compatibility with it had finally improved, reaching the level of divine unity. As a result, Long Yu could use the ancient dragon skeleton tower to construct an absolute spatial domain. Within this domain, no one would be able to escape. Not only would they be unable to use spatial divine runes to escape, they wouldn't even be able to fly. This thought only lasted for an instant. Then, the ancient Dragonbone Tower collided head-on with the Silver Fox Emperor's spatial blade of frost. The ancient supreme rank weapon and the Emperor Realm Silver Fox Emperor collided head-on. In the end, as Long Yu had expected, the Silver Fox Emperor was unable to resist the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower's attack at all and was torn to pieces. Without a doubt, after the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower was repaired to become a supreme ancient rank weapon, The Dragon Bone Break would become Long Yu's strongest attack. Be it the Dragon Breath of the Nine Underworlds or the Nether Dragon 9 explosions, their destructive power was far inferior to the Dragon Bone Break. As the Silver Fox Emperor's body was torn to pieces and thoroughly dead, Long Yu turned his gaze to the nearby Long Yanghua. Long Yanghua had wanted to escape, but unfortunately, Long Yu happened to be in perfect harmony with the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower, constructing an absolute spatial domain. Long Yanghua couldn't escape at all and could only wander around the edge of the domain. After Long Yu dealt with the Silver Fox Emperor, Long Yu flew towards Long Yanghua. After absorbing 2 Dark Beast crystals, Long Yu had recovered most of his divine rune power. He raised his hand and executed the Phantom Spiral and Dragon Breath of the 9 Underworlds. 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 After another 3 Dragon Breaths of the 9 Underworlds, Long Yanghua finally couldn't hold on any longer. He wanted to beg for mercy, but just as the thought crossed his mind, Long Yu stabbed the Nether Void Dragon Blade into the heart of his Jiao Dragon body. 2 Emperor Realm experts died in Long Yu's hands in less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn. At this time, the Silver Fox King, who had spread out to search for Long Yu, finally realized something was wrong from his subordinates. He hurriedly led thousands of enforcers back to the Long residence. What entered his eyes was his father's dismembered corpse, as well as the scene of Long Yu stabbing Long Yanghua to death with a single slash. Surround him. No matter what it takes, we must kill this traitor. The Silver Fox King felt a chill in his heart. Without a doubt, the current Long Yu was too strong. He was unimaginably strong. Although he was only a mid-stage King Realm cultivator, he could easily kill Emperor Realm experts at the same level as his father and Long Yanghua. After the Silver Fox King gave the order, he quickly retreated and wanted to escape. This person wanted to use the lives of thousands of enforcers to delay Long Yu so that he could escape. Unfortunately, how could Long Yu let him do as he wished? Where are you running to? Long Yu's voice rang in the Silver Fox King's ears like a nightmare. Then, he appeared in front of the Silver Fox King and raised his hand. The 9 Underworlds' heavenly light instantly covered the surroundings. When a 9 Underworlds' heavenly light was comprehended to its peak, it also had the effect of sealing space divine runes. However, it was different from the use of the absolute space domain. In most cases, one of them was enough. The 9 Underworlds' heavenly light could only seal space divine runes. If the martial cultivators inside knew other powers, they could dispel the 9 Underworlds' heavenly light. The absolute space domain could not be dispelled. Even Long Yu would be completely trapped in it. Of course, if Long Yu wanted to leave, he could cancel the absolute space domain at any time. This was the best way to trap his opponent. The 9 Underworlds' heavenly light spread and completely trapped the Silver Fox King. After 3 breaths, the 9 Underworlds' heavenly light quickly dissipated. However, the Silver Fox King's body had been completely annihilated by Long Yu's attack and was mercilessly beheaded. This scene shocked the thousands of enforcers who were about to make a move. Wasn't Long Yu a little too strong? He only needed 3 breaths to deal with the Silver Fox King, who was 1 realm higher than him. Members of the enforcers, listen up. Long Yu looked around and looked at the group of enforcers who were in the Divine Power Secret Realm and the early and middle stages of the King Realm. He said lightly, "Do you choose to listen to the Silver Fox King's orders or Yuhan Shin's?" Other than the Silver Fox King, who was the captain of the North Snow Imperial Capital's enforcers, there were many deputy captains. These deputy captains were all martial cultivators in the middle stages of the King Realm. They originally wanted to defend the North Snow Imperial Capital to the death, but when they heard Long Yu's words, they subconsciously replied at the same time, "Of course we will listen to Lady Yuhan Shin. That's enough. Yuhan Shin is now my senior sister," Long Yu said lightly. This sentence instantly shocked all the enforcers on the spot. Yuhan Shin was now Long Yu's senior sister? Was there a need to say who they would listen to? What's more, the Silver Fox King and the Silver Fox Emperor were already dead. Long Yu's combat power was terrifying. Even if they attacked together, they couldn't deal with Long Yu. Instead of dying in vain, it was better to go back and investigate first to see if Long Yu was really Yu Hanxin's junior brother. In other words, to see if Long Yu was already a personal disciple of the Red Emperor. Dismiss. The deputy captains of the enforcers immediately ordered everyone to disperse. Then, several deputy captains came in front of Long Yu and said, "We will solve the matter of the Long residence for you." The Long residence and the Silver Fox King conspired to kill Lady Yu Hanxin's junior brother. They deserved it. Thank you, everyone. Long Yu smiled slightly and raised his hand to throw more than 10 great desolate great elixirs. Consider these as a greeting gift. Each of you, take 3. The eyes of the deputy captains of the enforcers suddenly lit up. Great desolate great elixirs cost at least 10,000 shinbi each. Now that Long Yu casually gave them 3, they suddenly made a big profit. The effect of this bribe was very obvious. The deputy captains of the enforcers immediately felt admiration for Long Yu. No need to feel pity, Lord Long. In the future, we still have to rely on you and Lord Yu to develop our country. One of the deputy captains said solemnly. He was very clear that if Long Yu really became the Red Emperor's personal disciple, then the North Snow Empire would have 2 Red Emperor's personal disciples. Which other country had this kind of glory? From this, one could see that the North Snow Empire's development was just around the corner. When that time came, the members of the law enforcement team would definitely get more benefits and more cultivation resources, and thus climb to a higher martial arts realm. Alone, Long Yu headed to the North Snow Empire's Falling Moon Manor. This was the Long Residence's ally. Similar to the Long Residence's Manor Lord, many of their people were killed by Long Yu in the domain of rubble. In the operation against the Azura Manor, the Falling Moon Manor also had a part in it. Unlike the Sky Manor and the Silver Fox Manor, Yu Hanxin had taken away their forces, so the Silver Fox Manor and the Sky Manor no longer existed. As for the Falling Moon Manor, only the main force had died outside, but the Falling Moon Manor itself still existed. Moreover, the Manor Lord of the Falling Moon Manor was not dead yet. This trip of Long Yu's was to wipe out the Falling Moon Manor in one fell swoop, or at least kill the Manor Lord. When in the Azura Manor, Long Yu heard from Shu Chan that the Falling Moon Manor and the Long Residence had joined forces to attack the Azura Manor. They had already killed more than a dozen people from the Azura Manor, all of whom died tragically. This made Long Yu put the people from the Falling Moon Manor on his kill list. It would have been fine if he did not have the strength, but now that he had enough power, of course, he would not let go of those who deserved to be killed. If the Azura Manor and the Heavenly Mandate Manor wanted to develop steadily, they could not afford to have such a potential enemy. Therefore, Long Yu had to wipe out the Falling Moon Manor. When he arrived at the Falling Moon Manor, he found the people of the Falling Moon Manor waiting for him at the entrance under the leadership of the Falling Moon Manor's Manor Lord. Every one of them was trembling with fear. Obviously, the news of the Long Residence's annihilation had reached their ears. Lord Long, the Falling Moon Manor pleads guilty. Please give us a lighter sentence. Chapter 830. Most of the members of the Falling Moon Mansion were beautiful women. However, Long Yu knew that they were all beast cultivators. They belonged to the same clan as Yu Xinlan. Long Yu took a closer look at the head of the Falling Moon Mansion. Her human form was indeed beautiful. But unfortunately, Long Yu did not believe that she was sincere in surrendering. Since you've admitted to your crimes, then hand over all the cultivation resources of the Falling Moon Mansion to show your sincerity. Long Yu said indifferently. The Mansion Lord of the Falling Moon Mansion stood up after hearing this, but he was still hesitating. The cultivation resources of the Falling Moon Mansion were not small in number. If they were to hand over all of them to Long Yu, the strength of the Falling Moon Mansion would be greatly weakened. After the previous setback, the Falling Moon Mansion was already on the verge of collapse. If they were to suffer another setback, they might never rise again. It had to be known that this period of time was the best time for the various organizations in the North Snow Empire to rapidly develop. In just 2 or 3 years, the North Snow Empire would become the North Snow Empire, and the various organizations would basically be divided up. If they did not make use of these 2 years, the Falling Moon Mansion would lose its footing in the North Snow Empire. Since he refused to hand it over, then die. The head of the Falling Moon Mansion didn't expect Long Yu to laugh softly when he saw her hesitation. He immediately unleashed the absolute space domain and the 9 serenities' heavenly light at the same time. Long Yu remembered that Yuxin Lan, who had died in the region of rubble, was the daughter of the head of the Falling Moon Mansion. There was no way he could trust the head of the Falling Moon Mansion under these circumstances. Not to mention that Long Yu had sensed a wisp of killing intent from deep within her eyes when he observed her eyes. It was this wisp of killing intent that made Long Yu decide to eliminate the root of the problem. The 9 serenities' heavenly light instantly covered the entire area. 9 serenities' blades immediately formed and slashed towards the Falling Moon Mansion. As for the head of the Falling Moon Mansion, who was in the middle stage of the Emperor Realm, Long Yu personally activated the Dragon Bone Burst. This terrifying move would deplete the power of the ancient Dragon Bone Tower. Just like the 9 Netherworld Barrier, it could only be used 5 times a day. Although there was a limit, it was still much more useful than before. Not only was its destructive prowess increased by several dozen times, but the ancient Dragon Bone Tower would also not automatically disintegrate due to the Dragon Bone Breaker. As Long Yu and the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda were in perfect harmony, the consciousness within the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda had become even more sensitive. With just a thought from Long Yu, the ancient Dragon Bone Pagoda would fly out on its own, spinning rapidly as it attacked the Manor Lord of the Falling Moon Manor. The Manor Head of Falling Moon Manor hadn't expected Long Yu to attack without warning. However, she was still a mid-Emperor Realm cultivator. The moment Long Yu made his move, she immediately condensed a layer of icy divine characters in front of her and formed an extremely thick wall of ice. The Dragon Bone Break arrived. The ice wall shattered. Immediately after, the Netherworld spirals bloomed beneath the Manor Head's feet, immobilizing her for a breath's time. It was this one breath's time that allowed Long Yu's attacks to arrive. Hand of 9 Netherworlds, Soul Seal Absorption, Dragon Breath of the 9 Netherworlds. What followed was a continuous barrage of Dragon Breath of the 9 Netherworlds. No matter what defensive methods the Manor Head used, she couldn't escape Long Yu's attacks. Her entire body was quickly corroded by the divine characters of the 9 Netherworlds. It's about time. Die. Long Yu raised his hand. The Void Nether Dragon Blade was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. It turned into a sharp, pitch-black blade and pierced through space towards the Manor Head of Falling Moon Manor's heart. The Manor Mistress of Falling Moon Manor didn't even have time to transform before the Nether Void Dragon Blade pierced her heart 3 times in a row. The first 2 times, she used an ice wall to block it, but the 3rd time, she finally couldn't block it, and the Nether Void Dragon Blade directly pierced her heart. The Manor Head of Falling Moon Manor was dead. However, Long Yu discovered that after the Manor Head died, the Void Nether Dragon Blade that had pierced her heart had actually been completely sealed in ice. This was the Manor Head of Falling Moon Manor's origin power, Boundless Ice Seal. Long Yu didn't pay attention to it for now, because he was in the middle of a fierce battle. Logically speaking, Falling Moon Manor should still have 2 Emperor Realm experts left. One is a mid-Emperor Realm Manor Head, and the other is an initial Emperor Realm Elder. However, the Elder has disappeared. Long Yu frowned slightly, but didn't think too much about it. The Elder had probably left with some important figures of Falling Moon Manor before he arrived. It looked like the commotion caused by the annihilation of the Dragon Manor had been too great. The slightest disturbance had caused Falling Moon Manor to be prepared. This meant that Falling Moon Manor hadn't been completely eradicated. Since he'd made his move, Long Yu absolutely wouldn't let anyone from Falling Moon Manor go. He quickly cleaned up all the Yao cultivators in the entire Falling Moon Manor. Then, he formed 5 ancient shadows, each disguised as a small bird, and flew in all directions. Find the people of Falling Moon Manor and follow them. Long Yu gave the 5 ancient shadows an order, then left Falling Moon Manor and headed back to Sure Manor. The matter was almost settled. As for whether he could find the people of Falling Moon Manor, Long Yu wasn't worried. It had only been a short time since the Dragon Manor was annihilated. It was very likely that they hadn't left the North Snow Empire yet. Not everyone could master long-distance teleportation. It was impossible for Falling Moon Manor to have something like the Heaven and Earth Scroll used by the Manor Head of Falling Moon Manor. Of course, if he really couldn't find them, he could only forget about it. Long Yu knew that the people who escaped must have wanted to continue the bloodline of Falling Moon Manor and then try to take revenge. It was unlikely that they would appear in a short time. As long as he waited for a period of time, when the people of Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor had all grown stronger, there would be no need to be afraid of their revenge. Of course, it was naturally best to find them and eliminate them completely. With that in mind, Long Yu quickly returned to the Azura Manor. The news of the complete annihilation of the remaining forces of the Dragon Manor and Falling Moon Manor quickly spread throughout the North Snow Empire. At the same time, Long Yu's identity was also quickly exposed. He was the 7th direct disciple of the Red Emperor, the junior of Lady Yuhan Xin. Now that he had returned, he had completely wiped out the forces of the Dragon Manor and Falling Moon Manor that were a threat to Shura Manor and Heavenly Mandate Manor. He was extremely domineering. The Dragon Manor and Falling Moon Manor, as well as the Silver Fox King and the Silver Fox Emperor, were all annihilated by Long Yu in this battle. It was unbelievable. Not long ago, Long Yu was forced to admit defeat by Long Yao with great difficulty at the Imperial Capital's grand event. How long had it been since then? Long Yu could actually kill a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert. No wonder he was the direct disciple of the Red Emperor. In the past, there were some forces that wanted to deal with Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor. Now, they completely gave up on the idea. Originally, the Tian Shu Qi channeling, an upper-grade desolate level martial art technique, was very attractive to most forces. But now, Long Yu was the direct disciple of the Red Emperor. What was an upper-grade desolate level martial art technique to him? If they were on good terms with Long Yu, they would probably be able to get an upper-grade desolate level martial art technique if they wanted to. For a moment, countless people wanted to curry favor with Long Yu. However, when they arrived at Shura Manor, they found that Long Yu had already left. In fact, after annihilating Falling Moon Manor, Long Yu only returned to Shura Manor to explain the situation to everyone. Then, he flew back to Heavenly Mandate Manor with Shu Chan. This was because Shu Chan told Long Yu that the current situation in Heavenly Mandate Manor was not good. Because many of the core members of Heavenly Mandate Manor had gone out to train, there were not many people to manage it. Now, in Heavenly Mandate Manor, external forces were gradually gaining power. They seemed to be planning to snatch the Cultivation Jade Scroll of the Tian Shu Qi channeling. For Long Yu, this was naturally unforgivable. So, he immediately flew back to Heavenly Mandate Manor with Shu Chan. The news of Long Yu's identity spread, but it was not as fast as Long Yu and Shu Chan. When the news that Long Yu was the 7th direct disciple of the Red Emperor reached Heavenly Mandate Manor, the two had already arrived in the sky above Heavenly Mandate Manor. At this time, Heavenly Mandate Manor was indeed in a mess, just as Shu Chan had said. In the center of Heavenly Mandate Manor, on the top floor of the Cultivation Tower, was the place where many desolate-level martial art techniques were stored, including the Tian Shu Qi channeling. At this moment, there were 2 people guarding this place, Gu Yixian and Eldarin. Gu Yixian was a warrior at the later stage of the King Realm in the Cracked 2 squad, whom Long Yu had met in the Sky Tower. As for Eldarin, he had entered the King Realm because of Long Yu. Then, he came to Heavenly Mandate Manor according to Long Yu's instructions and worked for Long Yu. At this moment, Gu Yixian and Eldarin were guarding the gate of the Cultivation Tower. Outside the Cultivation Tower, hundreds of martial arts practitioners had gathered. These people were shouting slogans, saying that they wanted them to hand over the Cultivation Jade Scroll of the Tian Shu Qi channeling. When Long Yu won first place in the Red Emperor's illusionary realm, Heavenly Mandate Manor became famous, attracting a large group of martial arts practitioners from Jianghu and from outside. Although Hong Yu was very strict in the beginning, there was still trouble in the end, because the upper-grade desolate level martial art techniques were too attractive to these martial arts practitioners from outside. Especially after some of the core members of Heavenly Mandate Manor went out to train, these martial arts practitioners from Jianghu and from outside became even more aggressive. Our Shura Manor received a message from Hong Yu, saying that the martial arts practitioners from outside were rioting and wanted us to help. We sent 12 people first, but we didn't expect that the 12 people would be killed by the remnants of the Dragon House and Luoyue House. Shu Chan said with an ice-cold voice. Naturally, she did not have any good impression of those foreign martial cultivators. Fortunately, Long Yu had returned. Furthermore, with an extremely domineering attitude, he destroyed the Dragon Mansion and the Falling Moon Mansion. This made Shu Chan feel relieved. With such a domineering Long Yu, Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor would definitely be fine. However, seeing that Long Yu become so powerful, Shu Chan was certainly not convinced. She also wanted to go to the holy city of the Five Emperors and see how long you could grow so fast. The center of the Shinwu world must have a lot of cultivation resources, right? They must be courting death. Long Yu came to the sky above Heavenly Mandate Manor. At a glance, he saw a chaotic scene. Since Long Yu had reinforced the buildings with divine rune crystals, the people in the Heavenly Mandate Manor were not harmed. The Azure Dragon Army, the Xuanwu Army, and the others that Long Yu had arranged were all hiding in the buildings. The Jianghu martial arts cultivators and 4 martial arts cultivators who came to cause trouble could not damage the buildings and hurt them. However, when Hong Yu asked everyone to hide for the sake of everyone's safety, the martial arts practitioners from Jianghu and from outside became even more aggressive. They gathered together, trying to break into the cultivation tower and directly snatch the cultivation jade scroll of Dubhe Qi channeling. These people obviously wanted to leave with the jade scroll after they succeeded. By then, no matter if Yu Hanxin or Long Yu came back, they wouldn't be able to find them. Chapter 831. None of the martial arts practitioners who were making trouble in the Heavenly Mandate Manor knew that Long Yu had returned. In fact, these people would not be afraid even if they saw Long Yu before they got the news of what had happened in the North Snow Imperial City. On the surface, Long Yu was only in the middle stage of the King Realm. Although the speed of his progress was amazing, it was still nothing for them. In the entire Heavenly Mandate Manor, there were more than 300 martial arts practitioners from Jianghu and 4 martial arts practitioners who joined after Long Yu left. At first, these people obeyed the rules set by Hong Yu, but then they found that according to Hong Yu's rules, it would take at least several years for them to get an upper-grade desolate level martial arts skill. So, these people could not wait any longer. They were making trouble at the same time, because there were more than a dozen warriors in the secret realm of the King Realm. Hong Yu and the others certainly could not resist them. When these people joined forces to make trouble, only Gu Yixian could stop them. In the crowd, there were 13 warriors in the King Realm, including 1 in the late stage, 3 in the middle stage, and 9 in the early stage. Their overall strength was far beyond the original strength of the Heavenly Mandate Manor. The warrior in the late stage of the King Realm, together with another warrior in the middle stage of the King Realm, led 150 people in front of the cultivation tower, confronting Gu Yixian. Gu Yixian, I respect you for being a man. Now get out of my way, or we will all fight. The middle-aged man in the late stage of the King Realm threatened Gu Yixian. As he said this, more than 100 people behind him shouted with great momentum. Unfortunately, Gu Yixian was not moved at all. He just stood at the door of the cultivation tower, holding an upper-grade desolate level sword in his hand, indifferently. As long as these people really dared to attack the cultivation tower, he did not mind killing them all. It seems that he is unrepentant. It doesn't matter. When the 3rd and the 4th come back, we can do it. The middle-aged man in the late stage of the king realm said lightly. Obviously, for the time being, he did not dare to rush to fight Guixian. He was waiting for the other two in the middle stage of the king realm to come. In that case, the four of them would be able to deal with Guixian. As for now, the third and the fourth were leading the team to capture Hong Yu and the others, constantly bombarding the buildings in the heavenly mandate manner. Unfortunately, Long Yu had reinforced the building with divine runic crystals. How could they possibly break through it? You are too bold. The heavenly mandate manor tried to recruit you and provided you with a lot of cultivation resources. I didn't expect you to betray us for a martial arts technique. You are really heartless. Beside Guixian, Eldarin, who'd been invited over by Long Yu, glared at the cultivators in front of him with hatred. Unfortunately, he'd just stepped into the early stage of the king realm not too long ago, and his inner world hadn't expanded yet. It was utterly impossible for him to be a match for these people. Humph, we risked our lives for the heavenly mandate manor and carried out many missions, but the contribution points we received were only a fraction of that top-grade Great Desolation level martial arts technique. The middle-aged man at the advanced stage of the king realm grunted coldly and said, "Since the people in the manor don't trust us, then we'll take the initiative to take it. Let me see what you're relying on to stop us." Long Yu am back. At this moment, Long Yu's voice suddenly fell from the sky and came into the ears of everyone present. Eldarin suddenly looked excited. He and Guixian raised their heads together and saw Long Yu and Shu Chan descending from the sky and arriving in front of the cultivation tower. "It's you, Long Yu? Shu Chan?" The middle-aged man at the advanced stage of the king realm frowned slightly when he saw this. Wasn't it said that the people of the Dragon House and the Luoyue House had completely surrounded the Shura Manor? How could Shu Chan still come out? Moreover, after a few months, Long Yu had reappeared in the middle stage of the king realm, which was really surprising. However, he was only at the middle stage of the king realm. A boy at the middle stage of the king realm dares to stop me. You're really reckless. I'll kill you first. The middle-aged man at the advanced stage of the king realm, the leader of the martial cultivators, didn't take Long Yu seriously at all. As for Shu Chan, who was at the Seven Divine Realm, he didn't take her seriously at all. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man's figure flashed. He had actually comprehended the energy of the divine scriptures of space, and he condensed a spatial blade that tore through space and attacked Long Yu's face. "Young Master Long, watch out!" Elder and hurriedly warned from below. Guixian's eyes lit up, and he wasn't worried about Long Yu. Guixian was very clear that Long Yu, who was at the Four Divine Realm, was able to go against an early-stage King Realm expert. Now that Long Yu had stepped into the middle stage of the King Realm, how could a late-stage King Realm expert compare to him? As expected, the next scene instantly threw the hearts of everyone in the surroundings into chaos. "Stop! Spiral runes!" Long Yu raised his hand, and the spiral runes of the 7th grade divine chain bloomed beneath the middle-aged man and completely restrained him. Power of the origin, break. A large axe condensed from the divine scriptures of space bloomed from the middle-aged man's body, instantly splitting the spiral runes. However, before he could completely break free, Long Yu's attack came again. Dragon Breath of the 9 Underworlds. Spiral runes. Dragon Breath of the 9 Underworlds. Just the continuous circulation of these two moves completely trapped the middle-aged man. His physical body was constantly being destroyed and eroded by the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds. After the third dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, the middle-aged man's entire body was roasted black, and he fell straight onto the snowy ground of the heavenly mandate manor without a sound. The leader of the rebel army was dead. Run! When the remaining martial cultivators of the Jianghu saw this scene, they immediately panicked, and hundreds of them scattered in all directions. The leader of the late-stage King Realm expert was dead, and the rest of them had no chance of obtaining the upper grade desolation level martial arts technique. Therefore, they fled in all directions at once. Unfortunately, how could Long Yu let them escape? Ancient Dragon Bone Tower absolute space field. Long Yu raised his hand and directly released the ancient dragon bone tower. A wave of ancient, pitch-black light flashed in all directions, and then an absolute space field enveloped the entire space. Those people fled in all directions. When they had fled thousands of feet away, they suddenly found that there was a space barrier in front of them that was invisible to the naked eye, preventing them from escaping. No matter what method they used, they could not break this space barrier. Die! Long Yu ordered, and together with Gu Yixian, he chased in two directions, killing one martial cultivator of the Jianghu after another in an instant. Countless people began to kneel and beg for mercy. But how could Long Yu forgive these rebellious fellows? He held the nether dragon blade in his hand and continuously reaped the lives of those people. It only took half an hour for more than 300 rebels within the Heavenly Mandate Manor to die in the hands of Long Yu and Gu Yixian. Not a single one was spared. The entire Heavenly Mandate Manor, like the Dragon House and the Luoyue House, was bathed in blood. Blood was everywhere, dyeing the snow-covered land of the manor red. When the rebels were all killed, Hong Yu led the others in the Heavenly Mandate Manor away from the buildings where they were hiding. They all looked at the scene in shock. Long Yu had returned, and as soon as he returned, he had already stepped into the secret zone of the royal path. With a wave of his hand, he killed all the martial cultivators who were causing trouble, and once again saved everyone in the Heavenly Mandate Manor. Hong Yu, the manor manager, Qi Yun, the master of the weapon refining pavilion, and Ziling, the master of the alchemy hall, stood in front of Long Yu, listening to Long Yu's orders. At this time, Long Yu had a puzzled look on his face. Are you saying that the leaders of the entire Heavenly Mandate Manor, the Xuanwu Army, the Azure Dragon Army, the White Tiger Army, and the Death Army have all left the manor to train? This time, Long Yu originally wanted to find some people to go to the sacred city of the Five Emperors with him, so that they could enjoy a better cultivation matrix. However, he found that most of the people he wanted to find had gone out to train, which was far beyond his expectations. Man Xian, Fenyu Xen, Chihua, Yi Luan, Lu Yuan, Yin Huan, Imo, and so on. Many people that Long Yu was familiar with had all gone out to train, trying to find their own path of martial arts. In this regard, there was nothing Long Yu could do. Even Hong Yu didn't know where these people had gone to train. Unless they came back on their own, it was impossible to find them. If Long Yu had a cultivator of the Emperor Realm with him, he could calculate the current location of these people. Unfortunately, Long Yu didn't have the help of a cultivator of the Emperor Realm. If that's the case, we can only choose some other people to go with us. Long Yu shook his head helplessly, then named a few people. In the current Death Army, Shi Yingwu is still here. Let her go to the sacred city of the Five Emperors first, and bring along 7 other members of the Death Army with her. Every member of the Death Legion had comprehended the divine rune of death. Long Yu had heard from the Death Envoy that if there were 8 people who had comprehended the divine rune of death, they would be able to form a formation called Death Binding Seal Formation. Even if there were 8 King Realm cultivators using it, they would be able to trap an early-stage Emperor. If 8 Emperor Realm cultivators were to cast the Dead Binding Seal Matrix together, they would be able to trap everyone in Shunwu World. Since Man Xian, Chihua, Fengyu Xian, and the others weren't here, Long Yu had to find someone else. Apparently, Shi Yingwu had been cultivating quite well recently in the Death Army, so she was chosen to be the leader of the Dead Binding Seal Matrix. When Long Yu saw Shi Yingwu, he found that the little girl of the past had grown quite a bit, and now had 3 Thaumaturgy Realm cultivation. This speed was already quite unbelievable. Xiao Wu, take this badge and use the warp portal inside the North Snow Palace to lead the 7 members of the Death Army to the sacred tower at the center of the 5 Emperors. Then tell them that you're looking for Qinya Shuang. She will arrange for you to go to the Star Spirit Matrix to cultivate. Before I return, just focus on your cultivation, Long Yu told Shi Yingwu. Can I bring Grandpa with me? Shi Yingwu was a bit nervous as she asked. Seeing Long Yu again, she felt that Long Yu was different from before. After all, he was now a King Realm cultivator, so she was a bit reserved when she spoke. Of course. You can bring whoever you want, but I need the aid of you to quickly cultivate in the star spirit matrix, understand? Chapter 832. After listening to Long Yu's words, Shi Yingwu left happily to choose her people. She had been cultivating with the Death Army recently, so she was very familiar with them. It was not difficult to choose 7 of them to go with her to the sacred city of the 5 emperors. In addition, she also wanted to take her grandfather, Pine Crane, with her. Pine Crane was now working in the Alchemy Hall, but in fact his alchemy level was nothing in the Alchemy Hall. In the Alchemy Hall of the Heavenly Mandate Manor, Liao Leilei's talent was extremely outstanding. She learned alchemy from Master Bai in the Jintian clan, and after coming to the Heavenly Mandate Manor, she improved rapidly under Ziling's guidance. Now, Liao Leilei had just reached the divinity realm and could already refine heaven-level upper-grade elixirs. As long as her cultivation improved further, she could refine Great Desolate level lower-grade elixirs. Over the weapon crafting pavilion, Lu Guangming was improving at a godly speed. He had never learned weapon crafting before, but after coming to the North Snow Empire, he had learned a lot from Qi Yun and Hui Yuanbai. His martial realm was 1 level higher than Liao Leilei's, reaching the second path Transcendent Realm. As long as he had enough materials, he would be able to craft a high-ranked heaven-grade combat weapon. Similarly, he was still a little short of Great Desolate level lower-grade weapons. Whether it was Great Desolate level weapons or elixirs, to refine them, one had to at least have the cultivation of the 4 divinity realm. But with enough cultivation resources, it should be fast for the 2 of them. Long Yu called Hong Yu and Shu Chan over and made arrangements with them. He took out half of the assets from the Dark Shadow Pavilion given to him by Tianxiang Emperor and gave it to Hong Yu and Shu Chan, about half each. These cultivation resources are worth nearly 50 million Shinbi. You can each take half. Strive to make the Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor develop faster. With so many resources taken out, both Hong Yu and Shu Chan were stunned. Cultivation resources worth 50 million Shunbi. It should be noted that both the Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor only earned about 10 to 20,000 Shunbi every month, and they had to work hard to get it. But now, Long Yu had given them 50 million Shunbi worth of cultivation resources in one go. Even Shu Chan had to admit that Long Yu had surpassed her. All of this seemed to be because he went to the holy city of the 5 emperors. Looks like I have to make a trip to the holy city of the 5 emperors. Shu Chan thought about it and directly brought it up to Long Yu. If you want to go to the holy city of the 5 emperors, then go with Shi Yingwu and the others to the dragon domain that leads to the holy tower. That's where I belong. Long Yu nodded. As he was making arrangements, Long Yu suddenly frowned. He sensed that one of the primordial shadows he sent out had finally found the remaining early-stage Emperor Realm Elder of Luoyuan Manor. At this moment, the early-stage Emperor Realm Elder of Luoyuan Manor was fleeing to the outskirts of North Snow Imperial City with a mid-stage King Realm girl. They met a young man in a dense forest. Long Yu knew the young man. He was the second son of the Emperor Realm Expert from the Clouds Empire, Yun Chushui. Yin Chushui, mid-stage Emperor Realm. His strength should be slightly stronger than the Master of Longqing Manor and the Master of Luoyuan Manor. But it doesn't matter. He can only die in front of me. Long Yu thought to himself. He bid farewell to Hong Yu and Shu Chan and prepared to kill Yin Chushui and the remaining members of Luoyuan Manor. If one didn't eliminate the roots, the threat would be great. Therefore, even if the Luoyuan Manor only had one girl and the elder left, Long Yu wouldn't let any of them go. Long Yu wasn't worried that Yin Chushui and the others would escape. His primordial shadows had detected that Yin Chushui was heading straight for Heavenly Mandate Manor with the Luoyuan Manor girl and the elder. It seemed that they wanted Yin Chushui to kill Long Yu and avenge the Luoyuan Manor. The 2 would have to fight eventually. Naturally, Long Yu wouldn't run away. Instead, he wanted to meet them. In another 30 minutes, the 2 would meet above a river outside of Heavenly Mandate Manor. There was one thing that was rather interesting. Long Yu's primordial shadows had detected that the Luoyuan manor couple didn't want to deal with Long Yu. That was because Long Yu had even killed their mid-stage Emperor Realm Master. Why would he be afraid of Yin Chushui? However, Yin Chushui said that his strength was stronger than ordinary mid-stage Emperor Realm cultivators. At the very least, he could fight against a late-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. Therefore, I didn't have to worry. The Luoyuan manor couple could only follow behind because they could only rely on Yin Chushui now. They even paid the price of marrying the girl to Yin Chushui. Once he was within 100 miles, Long Yu immediately opened his eyes of shadow and observed the entire situation within 100 miles. Naturally, he also completely grasped the whereabouts of Yin Chushui and the two women from the Falling Moon Mansion. He flew directly in the direction of the three, alone. Almost there. For cultivators at the level of Long Yu and Yin Chushui, 100 miles was just a few dozen breaths distance. Long Yu could detect Yin Chushui, and Yin Chushui could detect Long Yu's position. The two were approaching each other rapidly. At first, my father warned me that Long Yu has already become the Red Emperor's personal disciple. He told me not to provoke him and even to let go of my younger brother's vengeance. But I just can't let go. Yin Chushui's eyes were filled with endless coldness. He said to the Falling Moon Mansion's elder and young woman, "Not to mention, he has now exterminated my fiancé's clan. Yin Chushui, will definitely kill Long Yu." "I hope so. I will help you at the critical moment." The Luoyuan Manor's Emperor Realm Elder, the old woman, said indifferently. However, a shadow flashed above her head at this moment and turned into a sharp, pitch-black blade that slashed horizontally toward her neck. What? This scene was immediately noticed by Yin Chushui and greatly shocked him. In his perception, wasn't Long Yu still more than 5 miles away? Why was someone launching a sneak attack now? Moreover, this Long Yu had launched a sneak attack without saying a word. His methods were truly ruthless. The old woman of the Luoyuan mansion didn't panic at all when she was ambushed. She simply raised her hand, and ice divine glyphs bloomed all over her body. An ice lotus enveloped her. The pitch-black blade directly destroyed the ice lotus, but it didn't harm the old woman at all. Without a sound, Long Yu's attack came again. This time, it was the Nine Hells' heavenly light that filled the sky. It instantly enveloped an area of more than 5 kilometers above the river. What the hell is this? Purify! Yin Chushui shouted harshly as a burst of light divine characters erupted from his hand. It was as if a small sun had been born in midair and actually dispersed the Nine Hells' heavenly light that filled the sky. As expected of a middle-stage Emperor Realm cultivator, Long Yu's first wave of sneak attacks didn't work, but he wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't like he hadn't killed a middle-stage Emperor Realm cultivator before. For the current him, as long as he acted carefully, it wouldn't be difficult at all. Fallen dark stars condensed one after another above the river, but Yin Chushui and the others still couldn't find Long Yu's figure. Yin Chushui and Long Yu entered battle mode. As for the old woman of Luoyuan Manor, she was carefully protecting the young girl from Luoyuan Manor. She didn't dare to approach Yin Chushui, but she didn't dare to go too far either. This was because they knew very well that Long Yu's methods were extremely vicious. They absolutely couldn't be left alone. Very soon, the fallen dark stars exploded one after another when they approached Yin Chushui. However, Yin Chushui snorted coldly and raised his hand. Fire divine characters burst forth and formed a wall of fire that blocked all the explosive power of the fallen dark stars. Light, fire, the power of 2 divine characters, Long Yu turned into a shadow and hid in the dense forest at the side, carefully observing Yin Chushui's fighting style. He quickly discovered that it wouldn't be as easy to deal with Yin Chushui as before. This was because Yin Chushui's basic strength far surpassed that of the Silver Fox Emperor and Luoyuan Manor's lord from before. If Long Yu bombarded it with his control methods, it would definitely be blocked. In this way, an attack like the 9 Underworld's Dragon Breath wouldn't be able to hit Yin Chushui at all. Who do you think you are, hiding your head and showing your tail? Come out, Angel Doppelganger! Yin Chushui took 2 of Long Yu's attacks, but couldn't find Long Yu's whereabouts. He immediately became incomparably angry, and light divine characters blossomed from his body like the sun. 12 winged angel figures condensed around his body. Each of the 12 angel figures looked like Yun Chuxue himself, but they were completely formed from light divine characters. Illuminate the heavens, Yun Chuxue shouted, and the 12 angel figures immediately blossomed with boundless radiance, causing all the shadows within a radius of several dozen kilometers to dissipate without a trace. Long Yu reacted quickly and directly disguised himself as a small fish in the river. However, at the same time, 12 black shadows gradually condensed above the river. Each black shadow held a pitch-black scimitar in its hand. This was Long Yu's 6th divine ability, 9 Netherhunter Summon. When he stepped into the mid-stage king realm, he could use any method at will, and he could even summon 12 9 Netherhunters at once. Unfortunately, this summon consumed all the energy in Long Yu's body. After he disguised himself as a small fish, he began to consume the Shadow Beast Crystal in the Book of Shadows and began to recover his strength. The 12 9 Nether Hunters each searched for an opponent and attacked the 12 Angel Doppelganger in the sky. Boundless radiance illuminated the earth. The Light Angels and the 9 Nether Hunters were like natural enemies, and the two sides quickly became entangled in battle. The strength of each Angel Doppelganger and the 9 Nether Hunters was actually about the same. They are merely mid-stage king realm kings. How is this possible? Yun Chuxue was incomparably amazed by the combat strength of these 9 Nether Hunters, but what he really cared about wasn't this. Instead, he was actually still unable to find traces of Long Yu. He had even used the Angel Doppelganger and illuminate the heavens. Logically speaking, no matter where Long Yu is hiding, he should be able to find him easily. All the shadows within a radius of several dozen kilometers had been forcefully dispersed, and Yun Chuxue knew everything within the range like the back of his hand. However, he just couldn't see Long Yu's figure. Of course, he sensed the small fish in the river, but he didn't consider that it would be Long Yu. Even if he did, which one of the tens of thousands of small fish in the river was Long Yu? Yun Chuxue was a loss. Chapter 833. Now that Long Yu had stepped into the middle stage of the king realm, he could continuously use any kind of magical martial technique, and his fighting style would become extremely flexible. Right now, he had thought of a way to trap anyone. Infinite imprisonment. With a thought, Long Yu rushed up from the river, and endless netherworld divine characters condensed in midair. Yun Chuxue reacted immediately and wanted to attack Long Yu. But how could he be faster than Long Yu? One after another, dark celestial bodies condensed around Yun Chuxue's body. Dark star confinement, dark star confinement, dark star confinement. More than 10 dark celestial bodies appeared around Yun Chuxue's body, firmly surrounding him within. This move was called infinite imprisonment by Long Yu. If there was only one dark star imprisonment, Yun Chuxue would probably be destroyed in an instant. However, now the dark star imprisonment had increased to 12 layers. It was easy to break a chopstick, but when 12 chopsticks were combined, the power needed to break them was difficult to estimate. The dark star imprisonment was similar. Long Yu directly stacked the 12 dark stars together, and the thickness directly increased by 12 times. To break it, the power needed to break it was far more than the power needed to break a dark star imprisonment by 12 times, or even hundreds of times. Even if Yun Chuxue wanted to break through such infinite imprisonment, he could not do it in one go. He needed at least 3 breaths of time. And 3 breaths of time was the time that Long Yu used to prepare to kill Yun Chuxue. The layers of dark stars completely darkened the entire space, and the 12 angel avatars were firmly held back by the 12 netherworld hunters, unable to attack Long Yu at all. Seeing this from afar, the old woman from Luoyuan Mansion immediately knew that the battle between the two had reached a critical moment. If she did not make a move, Yun Chuxue was very likely to be killed by Long Yu. This boy is too terrifying, he must be killed. Luoyuan Mansion's old woman's eyes flashed with hatred, and her whole body turned into a stream of light. Countless ice sword chi fell from the sky, quickly condensing into a giant ice sword, and fell towards Long Yu's head. Too slow. The corner of Long Yu's mouth curled slightly, and he did not pay any attention to the giant ice sword. His whole body instantly disappeared, and he used shadow evasion to move hundreds of meters in an instant. Immediately afterward, 6 ancient shadows were condensed by Long Yu, and each shadow began to condense fallen dark stars at the fastest speed. In a breath of time, a total of nearly 200 fallen dark stars were produced, and they surrounded the infinite imprisonment Yun Chu Shui. 1,000 miles of ice. The setting moon mansion's old woman saw how agile Long Yu was. His entire body erupted with the combined power of space divine runes and ice divine runes. He actually wanted to freeze the entire surrounding space. Long Yu did not dare to ignore such a large-scale attack, and he turned around and spat out a dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, directly opening a path through the 1,000 miles of ice. The space around Long Yu all turned into ice, but the place where he was burned by the dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, and it was not frozen. It was also at this moment that the giant ice sword from before actually began to rapidly advance through the frozen space, stabbing towards Long Yu. It was icy cold, and its might was astonishing. Dragon breath of the 9 underworlds, break for me! Long Yu once again spat out a mouthful of 9 underworlds dragon breath, directly blocking the gigantic ice sword. And at this moment, the boundless imprisonment finally lasted for 3 breaths of time. After that, it was unable to withstand the bombardment of Yun Chu Shui's attack, and with a loud bang, it shattered. However, Long Yu's 6 ancient shadows had condensed more than 500 fallen dark stars during this time, and they gathered around Yun Chu Shui. Yun Chu Shui had just broken through the infinite imprisonment, and before she had time to react, the more than 500 fallen dark stars exploded, and the terrifying power even spread to the frozen space around Long Yu, completely destroying the ice in the space. In the face of such power, Long Yu, who was within 100 zhang of him, had no choice but to dodge. He unleashed the Merak star shadow, leaving behind an afterimage of a star. At the same time, his body had already moved 100 zhang away. Furthermore, he was fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Long Yu was very clear about the explosive power of 500 fallen dark stars, especially now that he had stepped into the middle stage of the King Realm. If he did not run far away, even he would be affected, and even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Compared to Long Yu, the old woman from Falling Moon Mansion was not so lucky. She still wanted to kill Long Yu as soon as possible, and when she saw Long Yu's Merak Star Shadow, she thought it was Long Yu's real body, and launched another attack. Unfortunately, when she found that the Long Yu was just an afterimage, it was already too late for her to run. The explosive power of more than 500 fallen dark stars not only completely enveloped Yun Chu Shui, but also the old woman from Falling Moon Mansion, who was surrounded by the explosion of the pitch-black 9th Nether Divine characters. Not far away, when the young woman from Falling Moon Mansion saw this situation, she knew that the situation was not good, and hurriedly displayed a movement martial skill, turned around, and fled. However, very soon, Long Yu just happened to catch up at this moment. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. He could not let any of them go. In particular, this young woman from Falling Moon Mansion was quite talented, so of course, Long Yu could not let her escape safely. The explosion of the fallen dark stars directly blew up all 12 angel avatars present, and even the 9th Nether Hunters were not spared, and the surrounding dozens of kilometers were once again covered in shadows. The shadows of the trees and the towering mountains all became Long Yu's best assassination tools. Shadow kill art. As the young woman from Falling Moon Mansion turned around to escape, many shadows suddenly condensed into sharp blades, stabbing towards the young woman. The young woman from Falling Moon Mansion was so frightened that her beautiful face paled, and she hurriedly raised her hands, flames in her left hand, and ice in her right. The power of the 2 divine characters swept out at the same time, condensing into 2 layers of barriers, trying to resist Long Yu's shadow kill art attack. However, now that she was in the same martial Dao realm as Long Yu and had the same basic strength, she was completely inferior to Long Yu in all other aspects. So how could she escape from Long Yu's pursuit? As the Nether Void Dragon blade turned into a pitch-black sharp blade, it pierced through the 2 layers of defense, and the young woman's heart was directly pierced. She stopped breathing and slowly fell to the ground. At this point, the 3 people who wanted to deal with Long Yu were all dead. Long Yu, on the other hand, had only used up 10 Shadow Attribute Beast crystals. Long Yu discovered that although the power of his martial arts and combat arts could be mentioned in the same breath as a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert, the power contained within his body was much weaker in comparison. In a single battle, Long Yu had actually absorbed 10 Shadow-attributed exotic beast crystals. In other words, the energy in his body had been exhausted more than 5 times. If it wasn't for the fact that he had enough beast crystals, he would have died of exhaustion a long time ago. However, as long as Long Yu had enough beast crystals, he would be able to fight against a middle-stage Emperor Realm expert. That was an entire realm above him. There's still a long way to go before I reach the late-stage King Realm. I'm currently in the middle stage, so my inner world is 50 kilometers wide. Only by expanding my inner world to 10,000 kilometers will I be able to endure the process of merging with my true spirit and giving birth to origin power. Long Yu thought to himself. To put it simply, the amount of spirit energy needed to reach the late stage of the King Realm was 1,000,000 times more than the amount needed to reach the middle stage from the early stage. The larger the inner world, the more spirit energy needed to expand by 1 kilometer. The total amount of spirit energy needed to expand from 100 kilometers to 10,000 kilometers was 1,000,000 times the amount needed to expand from 1 kilometer to 100 kilometers. This was calculated based on the volume of the inner world. Correspondingly, Long Yu discovered that all of his meridians had been tempered to an extremely high level after he reached the middle stage of the King Realm. This included every other aspect of his physical body. His basic cultivation speed had increased by more than 100 times compared to before. If the star-soul array was taken into account, Long Yu would only need to cultivate in the star-soul array for a day, and it would be equivalent to consuming a desolate high-grade pill. Concentrating on cultivation is too slow for me. Although a day is equivalent to consuming an upper-grade great desolate rank pill, cultivating for a year is equivalent to consuming 3 different mid-grade ancient rank pills. It's not even comparable to absorbing an Emperor Realm special crystal. Long Yu shook his head. If he wanted to cultivate faster than others, he absolutely couldn't rely on concentrating on cultivation. He had to purchase more cultivation resources. The most important thing was beast crystals. Be it King Realm or Emperor Realm beast crystals, they could greatly increase his cultivation speed. After a rough calculation, Long Yu needed 100 Emperor Realm special crystals if he wanted to break through to the late stage of the King Realm in a short time. This was probably the result of 100 years of cultivation inside the Star Spirit formation. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was to break through in the King Realm. Just like Yu Hanxin, Blackblade, and Yi Ziwei must have had an extraordinary fortuitous encounter to break through to late Emperor Realm at such a young age. The Envoy of Death once said that in the Shunwu world, Juyo Dragon Emperor's miniature world, there were many supreme rank and supreme rank pills stored in the ruins. If one could obtain them, it would be extremely easy to make a leap in the martial realm. For example, a single heavenly demon pill allowed Long Yu to go from the early stage to the mid-stage of the King Realm. If he had a top-grade ancient rank pill, just one would be enough to have the gap between Long Yu and the late stage of the King Realm. I hope there are some pills useful to me in the ancient ruins. Long Yu thought to himself. Then, he burned the body of the fallen Moon Manor girl and left. As for Yun Shushui and the old woman of the fallen Moon Manor, they were blasted into nothingness by the 500 fallen dark stars. Not even a trace of them was left. The extermination plan was basically over. Next, Long Yu had to go explore the ancient ruins in the Shun Luo Empire. because the envoy of death had told him about it. Long Yu was quite familiar with the ancient ruins, the so-called small world remains of the sufferers. He knew where to enter and roughly what was inside. Chapter 834. After Long Yu returned to the Heavenly Mandate Manor, he sent Shi Yingwu, the 7 members of the Death Legion, Shi He, Shi Lao, and Shu Chan to the North Snow Imperial Palace. Then, he rushed to the Shenluo Empire alone. So far, the person that Long Yu trusted the most was Shu Chan. After all, Shu Chan knew many of his secrets. Even the Azura Ancient Palace was owned by him. Therefore, when Shu Chan went to the holy city of the 5 emperors, Long Yu wanted her to enter the 5 emperors' illusory realm. In the North Snow Empire's Red Emperor's illusory realm battle, the Red Emperor must have noticed Shu Chan, maybe without Long Yu saying anything. He would give her a place to enter the 5 emperors' illusory realm. For this, Long Yu could only deal with it after he came out of the ancient relic. Now, he must focus all his attention on the ancient relic. While Long Yu was rushing to the Shenluo Empire, the emperors of the Cloud Empire and the Shenluo Empire began to deduce Long Yu's whereabouts. For Emperor Yindun, the deaths of his 2 sons were related to Long Yu. Of course, he would not let Long Yu go. As for the people of the Shenluo Empire, there were spies in the North Snow Empire. Since there were spies, they must have received the news of Long Yu's return. Therefore, Situ Lioli, the daughter of the city lord of the city of Desolate God, asked her father to deduce Long Yu's whereabouts. Long Yu took 3 desolate great elixirs from the general's mansion, which made Situ Lioli suffer a great loss. She would probably never forget the humiliation that Long Yu brought to her that day. This was the first time she had suffered a setback since she came to this world. Naturally, Long Yu had left a deep impression on her. Emperor Realm experts were almost never wrong in their deductions of low-level martial practitioners. Soon, Long Yu's movements were clearly displayed in front of the Emperor Realm experts. Some of the stronger martial emperors even managed to deduce Long Yu's destination, somewhere in the Shenluo Empire. As a result, a large group of experts embarked on a journey to kill Long Yu. However, not a single person dared to step into the territory of the North Snow Empire to cause trouble. After all, everyone knew that Yu Hanxin was the ruler of the North Snow Empire, and she was the 6th direct disciple of the Red Emperor. Of course, to be honest, they were afraid of Yu Hanxin because they couldn't beat Yu Hanxin. As for Long Yu, he was only in the intermediate stage of the King Realm. As long as they sent someone to kill him, would the Red Emperor slaughter them all in a fit of anger? When the Red Emperor asked, they could directly say that they didn't know Long Yu's identity. What else could the Red Emperor do? Moreover, there were many precedents of the direct disciples of the 5 emperors being killed when they were training outside. The 5 emperors had never been angered by such a matter. The direct disciples of the 5 emperors were killed while they were out adventuring. This in itself was a kind of humiliation. If the 5 emperors were to care about this kind of thing, how could their direct disciples truly grow? Long Yu spent 3 days and arrived at the border between the North Snow Empire and the Shenluo Empire. Then, he disguised himself as a crow and flew leisurely in the sky. During this period, Long Yu sensed that many people were waiting at the border of the Shenluo Empire. They were obviously waiting to kill him. Unfortunately, no one knew that he had transformed into a crow. When Long Yu flew thousands of miles at his fastest speed, half a day had passed. Finally, a large group of people chased after this crow. There was no other reason. The Emperor Realm Powerhouse had finally divined that Long Yu was in the vicinity, but he couldn't figure out where exactly Long Yu was. In the end, there were still people who suspected this crow. However, just as that person was about to kill the crow, Long Yu's body transformed and rapidly rose high into the sky, turning into a speck of dust. Not only that, he also formed 6 ancient shadows and made these ancient shadows all disguised as crows. They flew in all directions and attracted the attention of a large group of people. The speck of dust that Long Yu had transformed into was blown forward by the strong winds in the sky. Although its speed was slow, it was still able to quickly leave this area. He once again slipped away from the eyes of the pursuers. By the time the emperors deduced his location again, he had already flown thousands of miles away. Just like that, Long Yu relied on the Book of Shadows to disguise himself and move forward. He would sometimes turn into a bird, sometimes into a fish, and he would swim along the river. Day after day, 3 days passed. He was already not far from his destination, the ancient ruins. The emperors had deduced his location 6 times, but none of them were able to catch him. However, after these 6 deductions, everyone understood the trick to Long Yu's evasion: disguise himself as something else to confuse the public. Although they didn't know how Long Yu did it, they firmly believed that if this continued, they would be able to capture Long Yu in less than 2 days. There were even 2 martial emperors who had personally arrived at Long Yu's destination that they had deduced and were prepared to wait for him. Another day passed, and Long Yu arrived in the sky above an extremely barren swamp. The entrance to the ancient ruins mentioned by the Envoy of Death was located here, underneath a 10,000-year-old quagmire. Upon arriving here, Long Yu sensed that he wasn't far from the ancient ruins. He immediately transformed into a small snake and burrowed into the ground beneath the quagmire. This kind of small snake was a race of demonic beasts that had lived in this swamp for generations. They were extremely powerful to be able to traverse the swamp as if it was flat ground. Long Yu's speed was even faster than when he was flying in the sky. When Long Yu transformed into a small snake and burrowed into the swamp, many pursuers finally arrived. "Where's that kid? I wonder what he's disguised himself as this time. Everyone, be careful. No matter what tries to fly away, shoot it down. Don't let even a fly escape. It seems like that kid's destination is this swamp. Should we go down and search? There might be some treasures in this swamp. You, and you follow me down. Let's see if we can find anything." Even the 2 emperors arrived at this place. They looked at the large swamp with furrowed brows. One of the experts was a late-stage emperor. He wasn't from the Shenluo Empire, but his divination ability was the strongest among them. All the experts from the Shenluo Empire were extremely respectful towards this old man. This old man was an imperial elder from the Taiwu Empire, one of the 6 sects and 10 countries near the holy city of the 5 emperors. The Taiwu Empire was undoubtedly a colossus compared to the Shenluo Empire. Any imperial elder who came would be welcomed by the entire Shenluo Empire. One had to know that there were no late-stage emperors in the entire Shenluo Empire. At most, there were only mid-stage emperors. This was why they were afraid of Yuan Xin. Even the strongest expert in the Shenluo Empire couldn't defeat Yuan Xin, who was only a late-stage emperor. But because of this, Long Yu thought of the Tianqin Empire. A long time ago, the Tianqin Emperor had fought with Yuan Xin. Although he was seriously injured by Yuan Xin, it was still not easy for him to survive under Yuan Xin's attack. This was also why Long Yu hadn't gone to the Tianqin Empire yet. Otherwise, he would have gone to the Tianqin Empire to avenge the King of Shura and the King of Shadows. He would also have taken down the Tianqin Empire along the way. That way, he would have enough cultivation resources. The people of the Heavenly Mandate Manor and Shura Manor wouldn't have to worry about not having a place to train. The Tianqin Empire wasn't much smaller than the North Snow Empire. As long as Long Yu had the confidence to defeat the Tianqin Emperor, he would immediately kill him and occupy the Tianqin Empire. But now wasn't the time. Soon, the late-stage Emperor Realm Elder from the Taiwu Empire finished his divination and said, "I've divined for 3 days and 3 nights, and I've finally found his final destination. Everyone, please follow me." And so, the group followed the Taiwu Empire Elder to the center of the swamp. There was an enormous swamp pond in the center of the swamp. It looked no different from the rest of the swamp. However, the Taiwu Empire Elder pointed at the pond. "This swamp pond is not an ordinary place. If I'm not wrong, it should be an ancient ruin. Without a doubt, this is Long Yu's destination." Ancient ruin. I didn't think that the kid would bring us to such a good place. The people of the Shenluo Empire were pleasantly surprised. Who didn't want to enter an ancient ruin? Everyone knows that every single ancient ruin in Shunwu world holds a great fortune. If you can obtain it, your cultivation strength will go through a drastic change. Don't be too happy yet. The Grand Wu Empire Elder's face immediately darkened. I've divined again and found that only cultivators below the Martial Emperor stage can enter this ancient ruin. Once one reaches the Martial Emperor stage and has mastered the power of divination, they will be blocked by the ancient ruin and cannot enter. So that's the case? A mid-stage emperor from the Shenluo Empire, the city lord of the city of Desolate God, Situ Kong, was Situ Liuli's father. Because Long Yu had bullied Situ Liuli, he was the most diligent in capturing Long Yu. Other than him, the great general of the Desolate God City's general's mansion had also participated in the operation to capture Long Yu. Unfortunately, at this point in time, these Emperor Realm experts were at their wits' end. So what if he was an emperor? If they couldn't enter the ancient ruin, they couldn't capture Long Yu. It doesn't matter. We have many late-stage Emperor Realm cultivators here. We can send any of them to capture that brat and explore the ancient ruins. The general of the city of Desolate God's general's eyes flashed with anticipation as he quickly arranged for his subordinates to enter the ancient ruins. There were many late Emperor Realm lieutenant generals and mid-Emperor Realm army captains among his subordinates. These people were all trustworthy, and they would definitely inform him if they discovered anything in the ancient ruins. Perhaps he would be the one to gain the most from this operation. The general was filled with anticipation. Mid-stage Emperor Realm cultivators, be careful. According to the news from the North Snow Empire, that long you can kill a mid-stage Emperor Realm cultivator. The Taiwu Empire Elder said with a serious expression, "Don't worry, we are soldiers of the Empire, not as weak as those small families of the North Snow Empire. Plus, we have many late-stage Emperor Realm cultivators inside, enough to capture that brat." The general didn't care at all. With an order, the Emperor Realm cultivators under him charged into the swamp below. A burst of spatial divine characters flashed, and the Emperor Realm cultivators all disappeared. They must have entered the ancient ruins. Chapter 835. The Death Envoy told Long Yu that this ancient ruin was the wreckage of the small world of the Sufferers. As for who the Sufferers were, Long Yu didn't know. But with a slight guess, he knew that it should be an expert who was imprisoned here by the Juyo Dragon Emperor. Of course, it was a former expert. Now that the small world had become a wreckage, it could be imagined that the so-called Sufferers had already died. If it wasn't for Long Yu using the seal imparted by the Death Envoy to open the door of this ancient ruin, and if it was handed over to the people of the Shenluo Empire, they wouldn't be able to find this ancient ruin even after 10,000 years. Since there was a way to open it, there was naturally a way to close it. But after Long Yu entered, he didn't close it, but opened the door, wanting to let others in. There was no other reason. Long Yu completely wanted to trap and kill those so-called martial arts experts in the ancient ruin. "Don't you want to kill me? I'll let you have a taste of my power." The Death Envoy imparted to Long Yu 5 seals, one to open the small world, one to close the small world, and the other 3 seals could be used to control the various arrays in the small world. But now that this small world had become a wreckage, even the Death Envoy didn't know how many arrays were left in it, so he could only rely on Long Yu to explore it himself. Anyway, as long as it was an intact array, it could be activated by Long Yu. Long Yu stepped into this small world from the central pond of the swamp, and the first thing that came into view was a broken starry sky. As far as the eye could see, there were countless wreckage of planets floating in the empty, pitch-black void, and cracks in the space that could be seen with the naked eye were constantly appearing in front of Long Yu's eyes. If one was not careful, one would be completely swallowed by those cracks in the space, and even an Emperor Realm expert wouldn't be able to survive. This was indeed the wreckage of a small world, but there were still many good things in it. If Long Yu could obtain them, it would be very helpful to improve his strength. The Death Envoy said that the sufferers from beyond the heavens are all natural-born alchemists. This is an extremely special race that possesses great power even beyond the heavens, because they have grasped the refinement methods of many rare medicinal pills. As for the sufferers sealed in this Geo-Dragon Emperor's small world, long you guessed that they were probably captured by Geo-Dragon Emperor to concoct medicinal pills for him. So if his luck was good, long you would definitely be able to find a lot of rare pills in the ruins of this miniature world. The rare I'm talking about here refers to how rare they are even in outer space. As for Shenwu World, there is only one of them, no other. The inner world of a late-stage King Realm cultivator is around 10,000 miles. If it's Emperor Realm, 100,000 miles, a million miles, or even 10 million miles. If it's Emperor Realm, it's at least 100 million miles. If it's peak Emperor Realm, it could even be 300 million miles. Once it surpasses Emperor Realm and becomes an even stronger existence, its inner world will turn into a small world, a world that can truly nurture life, just like Shenwu World. It's not hard to imagine just how big this small world is. It's as hard to explore as the stars of the universe. Long you had no choice but to continue approaching one of the spatial cracks, forming a hand seal from afar to try to activate it. Finding no reaction, he gave up and flew towards another spatial crack. Forming another hand seal, a white light shot out from the spatial crack and enveloped Long Yu. In the next second, Long Yu was teleported to another place. Long Yu knows that he's heading deeper into the small world. If there were any pills left behind by the sufferers, they would definitely be stored in the depths of the small world. Relying on the seals that the Death Envoy taught him, he continued to move forward. As for the Shun Luo Empire's Emperor Realm cultivators that followed him in, they weren't so lucky. The wreckage of this small world was simply too huge. Long Yu formed a hand seal and used the spatial crack to teleport tens of millions of miles away. But these Emperor Realm cultivators didn't understand hand seals, so they couldn't activate the spatial crack. After paying the price of 3 people, they finally realized that these spatial cracks couldn't be touched at all. Touching them would only result in death. Therefore, they had no choice but to avoid these spatial cracks and fly rapidly inside. Fortunately, they were Emperor Realm cultivators, and their flying speed wasn't slow at all. After a day, they finally flew out of the distance that Long Yu could teleport once. However, faced with the boundless pitch-black void, these people were extremely anxious. The ancient ruins were connected in all directions. They had no idea where Long Yu had gone. But exploring an ancient ruin would take at least 10 days to half a month. So, they didn't pay too much attention to it. They only left a small group of 5 to guard the entrance, while the others went off in different directions. There were more than 100 people who had entered the ancient ruins, but when they scattered, it was as if no one had come here at all. Compared to the ancient ruins, humans were simply too insignificant. Forget 100. Even if 1,000,000 people surged in, the ancient ruins wouldn't be able to detect them after they scattered. The ancient ruins was an extremely dangerous place. They had just entered and tried to test the spatial crack, but 3 people had already died. Therefore, everyone was very cautious. What they didn't know was that after flying for a day, Long Yu had already advanced to the center of the small world. After teleporting a dozen or so times, Long Yu found himself in a dangerous place. In front of him was a giant spatial crack that could split the sky and earth. It was as if the entire small world had been split in half. Long Yu didn't dare to activate the teleportation crack in front of him. That was because that enormous spatial crack was like a ferocious tiger that was choosing its prey. Even if there was a teleportation crack, if he was teleported into that enormous spatial crack, then he wouldn't even know how he died. He could only choose to retreat to the spatial crack and change his path. After teleporting 3 times, he was once again faced with the giant spatial crack. His heart sank, and he retreated once more. He kept trying to take a detour, but he hadn't expected the spatial crack to be hundreds of millions of kilometers long. He couldn't go around it no matter how hard he tried. Finally, he arrived at the end of the spatial crack after a series of teleportations. He could finally fly over slowly. As for teleporting over directly, Long Yu still didn't dare. It took Long Yu 4 days to circle around the giant spatial crack. And this was only because he had mastered the seal and could teleport. By the time the Emperor Realm cultivators arrived, it would probably take them 10 days to half a month to circle around the spatial crack. After circling around the giant spatial crack, Long Yu knew that he was close to his destination. A row of spatial cracks appeared in front of him. This was the transfer point for the small world's ruins. Through these spatial cracks, Long Yu could reach the true core of the small world, the pill refinement rooms. Of course, only one of the 8 spatial cracks led to the pill refinement rooms. The others led to storerooms, residences, and so on. Up until now, Long Yu hadn't seen the existence of any living beings, not even the remains of the dead. His heart sank, and he finally chose one of the spatial cracks. He activated the seal and shot out a tiny white beam of light from the spatial crack. It struck Long Yu and transported him to the next place. Swoosh! What appeared in front of Long Yu was actually a vast and boundless grassland. However, this grassland had long since been barren. Right above Long Yu's head, far away in the void, there was a teleportation crack. This was the passageway to return to that place. Chapter 836. Long Yu flew towards the place he detected. Since the Eye of Shadow can't detect anything more than 100 miles, Long Yu only needed a few breaths of time to get there. When he arrived, Long Yu saw a bunch of broken buildings. It looked like a small city, but now all that was left of it was the remains of a city. As Long Yu flew forward, he found that there were quite a few skeletons among the buildings. Obviously, some kind of creature once lived here, but unfortunately, they've been dead for who knows how many years. This is a world, a small world just like Shenwu World. When Long Yu saw this scene, his heart finally shook. Although there are countless ancient ruins in Shenwu World, most of them are small ones. As for a large ruin like this small world of the afflicted victims, Long Yu has never heard of anyone finding it before. And now he's arrived at this small world, a place for living beings to live. This continent has already become an endless wasteland, devoid of any life, a barren wasteland. But not too long ago, before this small world was destroyed, this place was probably just as prosperous as the current Shenwu world. As Long Yu moved forward, he didn't even walk 1,000 miles before he saw the remains of many similar cities. But without exception, all of these cities have been destroyed, devoid of any living beings. Long Yu recalled the giant spatial crack he saw not too long ago. That was a place hundreds of millions of miles away from this barren continent. But because of that giant spatial crack, the entire ruins of the afflicted victims' small world were shaken. As Long Yu looked around, on this barren continent, giant cracks could be seen everywhere. Mountains were cut off, rivers were completely dried up. This was an apocalyptic scene. Long Yu really wanted to know what happened back then. So he thought about the current Shenwu world. Geo Dragon Emperor's small world couldn't possibly be smaller than this one, so it must have been much larger. Within the ruins of this small world, this continent of living beings is only a very small part of it. Then, within Geo Dragon Emperor's small world, is Shenwu world also a very small part of it? Long Yu thought about the vortex 10,000 miles above Shenwu world. That's one of Geo Dragon Emperor's 7 thaumaturgies, a vortex formed by the vortex, known as one of the 7 forbidden areas of Shenwu world. But no one has ever been able to reach that place. They can only see it from afar, just like the sun and moon. How far away is that vortex from Shenwu world? Shenwu world must only be one of Geo Dragon Emperor's small worlds. But knowing this won't help me much right now. Long Yu shook his head and returned the way he came. There is nothing left on this barren continent, which means he won't be able to find anything useful here. Even if there is, he'll have to wait until he finds the alchemy rooms and storage rooms of the victims. Long Yu went through the spatial crack and returned to the previous transfer station. Looking at the other 8 cracks, he picked one and activated it. A white light shot out and teleported Long Yu away. This time, when Long Yu opened his eyes, he was given a fright. That was because in the void less than 50 miles away from him, there was actually a spatial rift. From this spatial rift, an extremely powerful suction force was emitting, wanting to suck Long Yu in. Too close. Long Yu had never been so close to a spatial crack before. He didn't think that it would have such a strong suction force. Gritting his teeth, he hurriedly circulated all the power in his body and flew away. Long Yu was unable to use the laws of heaven and earth that he grasped within the remains of this small world. However, he could use the divine runes to resist the suction force of the spatial crack, allowing Long Yu to slowly move away from the spatial crack. That was close. Long Yu's heart jumped. If the teleportation distance was a bit closer, he probably wouldn't have been able to escape from that spatial crack. As he looked back, the spatial crack was like a giant, gaping mouth, taking up more than half of his vision. But as he moved further away, the spatial crack became smaller and smaller, until it was the same size as a normal spatial crack or a teleportation crack. Long Yu was instantly overwhelmed with shock. So any random spatial crack in the ruins of this small world is even more spectacular than the sanctum. But from afar, he didn't think much of it. If that's the case, then how big is the giant spatial crack that he went around before? It's probably even bigger than the entire Shun Wu world. But very quickly, Long Yu regained his senses from his shock, because he found that he had finally reached his destination. The storage room in the ruins of this small world. Appearing in front of Long Yu was a giant palace floating in the void of space. This palace was bigger than any palace Long Yu had ever seen before, or even any city. Even the sanctum looked like a toothpick in front of this palace. Majestic, magnificent. Long Yu's mind was unable to find the right words to describe this huge palace. He only knew that he had definitely found the place, because this place was exactly the same as what the Death Envoy had said. But what made Long Yu's heart sink was that in the middle of this palace, there was a spatial crack that completely pierced through it, splitting it in half. This place was the storage room for the sufferers, a place to store pills. But the middle part of it had already been pierced through by the spatial crack. Most of the things inside had already been destroyed by the spatial crack. Will I still be able to find the ancient pills I want? Long Yu thought to himself as he cautiously approached. Moreover, he condensed 6 desolate ancient phantoms and flew towards the different entrances of the palace. In front of this palace, Long Yu and his desolate shadows were like ants. No, they weren't even as small as ants, they were too small. After going through the 7 different entrances, the first thing they saw were 7 different palaces. In the middle of each of these palaces was an extremely exquisite stone platform. On top of each platform was a pill bottle that gave off an ancient aura. Found it, open it. Under Long Yu's command, the desolate ancient shadow stepped forward and attempted to open the medicinal bottles that emitted an ancient aura. However, in the next moment, the 6 primordial shadows faced the same scene at the same time. A beam of white light descended from the sky and enveloped the primordial shadows. In just an instant, all the primordial shadows were obliterated by the white light. Just as I thought, Long Yu thought to himself, but he wasn't disheartened. He raised his hand and formed a seal before walking towards the ancient pill bottle in front of him. The white light that destroyed the desolate shadows did not appear. Long Yu successfully arrived in front of the stone platform and picked up the ancient pill bottle. Pill extraction seal. If I didn't have the pill extraction seal, I wouldn't have been able to obtain these pills. Instead, I would have been completely destroyed by the protective array. To think that the entire palace was split in half by the spatial crack, but the protective array is still working. Long Yu sighed with emotion before opening the pill bottle in his hand. An ancient fragrance wafted into his nostrils. Long Yu looked at the pill bottle and discovered that there was only one pill inside. Although he couldn't tell what this pill was used for, he could tell that it was definitely an ancient transcendent grade pill or above. Ordinary ancient grade pills wouldn't have such a strong fragrance. This pill had a similar aura to the heavenly demon pill that Long Yu had consumed, but there were some differences. I can only bring it back for the death envoy to appraise. Long Yu kept the pill and continued to form the desolate shadows as he walked deeper into the palace. The spatial cracks stretched across the palace, and a suction force could be felt at any time. Long Yu had to let the desolate shadows lead the way. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. Step by step, Long Yu moved forward cautiously. He realized that the deeper he went, the stronger the aura of the pills, and the higher the quality. He had only reached the third hall, but he had already obtained a pill that was at least of the Archean grade. He was overjoyed. This trip was too rewarding. Just as Long Yu moved towards the fourth hall, the 6 desolate shadows felt a suction force at the same time, causing them to lose their balance. However, the suction force wasn't too strong, and they weren't completely sucked away. After entering the palace where the medicinal pills were stored, the path was clear. Long Yu could even see the spatial rifts outside of the 7 palace halls. The 7th hall had already been completely destroyed by the spatial crack. With the materials used to build this grand palace, only the 7th hall could withstand the suction force of the spatial crack. If it were Long Yu, he definitely wouldn't have been able to go so far. Each hall was 100 miles away, and Long Yu was still 400 miles away from the 7th hall. However, he had a feeling that if he went another 100 miles, he wouldn't be able to withstand the suction force of the spatial crack. It's a pity that I can only obtain pills from 4 halls. Long Yu felt that it was a pity. However, when he stood in the 4th hall, he discovered that the suction force of the spatial crack was quite terrifying. If he went any further, he would definitely die. He cautiously retreated as he opened the pill in the 4th hall. He discovered that there was indeed a rare pill that exuded a boundless ancient aura. It was at least of the Archean grade. Long Yu silently thought. It was already quite good for other people of Shunwu World to be able to obtain an Archean grade pill when exploring the age of old ruins. Like the Black Blade and Yizi Wei, it was because they explored quite a few age of old ruins and obtained many Archean grade pills that their cultivation was able to increase so quickly. But now, Long Yu was able to easily obtain an Archean grade pill. Aside from the extremely dense spirit essence of the world contained within, Archean grade pills all have their own unique effects. This made it even more attractive to Long Yu. If I can comprehend Dark Shadow Divine script to level 9, I'll be able to cultivate divine formations and become invincible at the same level. Long Yu's heart was burning with passion. He didn't leave just like that. Instead, he retreated from this hall and entered the other entrance of the palace. There were a total of 18 entrances to the entire palace. Each of the 18 entrances had a clear path. If Long Yu could obtain 4 pills from each entrance, then Long Yu would have a total of 72 pills. What kind of wealth is that, compared to the alliance of 5 emperors? Chapter 837. After spending an entire day, Long Yucai finally walked through all 18 entrances of the storage palace. Furthermore, he walked through 4 halls from each entrance. There were a total of 72 medicinal pill bottles. Unfortunately, some of them were empty. In the end, Long Yu obtained 51 medicinal pills, all of which were ancient grade and immemorial grade. There was even a large pile of transcendent grade and peak grade medicinal pills. However, Long Yu didn't dare to use them rashly, so he decided to go back and ask the Death Envoy first. Long Yu looked at the halls at the back, very envious, but it was a pity that if he went any further, he would be sucked away by the spatial crack that traversed the entire hall. If he lost his life, it wouldn't be worth it. However, when Long Yu saw that there were still 3 more palace halls behind, all of them were filled with pill bottles that were protected by spirit arrays, he felt rather reluctant. There were so many pills, but he could see them, but he couldn't get them. It was really too puzzling. The entire storage palace originally had at least tens of thousands of halls, which stored tens of thousands of pills. Even if most of them were destroyed by the spatial crack, there were still a few hundred that weren't destroyed. And now, Long Yu had only obtained 51 pills. Naturally, he wasn't too satisfied. It wasn't that he didn't know how to be content, but he was very clear that he wouldn't have such an opportunity again after this. Where would the other ancient ruins have so many pills for him? Every sufferer was a natural alchemist, and the one who was caught by the Geo-Dragon Emperor was probably the only one. Let's see if I can use other methods. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and thought hard. The entire palace was pitch black, but as Long Yu formed a hand seal, the surrounding stone walls would all light up, illuminating the entire hall. This hand seal was exactly the same as the one used to close the protective arrays of the pills. Suddenly, Long Yu had an idea and formed the hand seal, extinguishing all the light in the surroundings. Ancient shadow, turn into a shadow and move forward. Long Yu formed an ancient shadow and then turned it into a shadow, moving forward in the darkness. Soon, he discovered that the spatial crack really didn't have any suction force on pure shadows. Anything else, even if Long Yu formed a 9 nether hand, would be sucked away by the spatial crack, but after turning into a shadow, it wouldn't be affected by any suction force. This solved the problem of the spatial crack suction force. But in this way, there was another problem in front of Long Yu, and that was that after turning into a shadow, he couldn't form a hand seal and couldn't close the protective arrays of the pills. How could he take the pills? Long Yu pondered for a moment, then stopped the ancient shadow from turning into a shadow and stood in the hall again, and instantly felt the strong suction force of the spatial crack. However, Long Yu immediately made the desolate ancient shadow cast the 9 underworld heavenly light, enveloping the entire palace hall in the black fog of the 9 underworld heavenly light. The ancient shadow, which was originally affected by the suction force, instantly stopped in place, which made Long Yu overjoyed. Sure enough, the light of 9 nether could block all the effects of the spatial divine characters, and even when facing the suction force of the spatial crack, it could still stop it. Unfortunately, the light of 9 nether could completely not affect the spatial divine characters, but it itself would be sucked away by the spatial crack suction force, and the speed at which it was sucked away was quite fast. This had already given Long Yu enough opportunities. If he still couldn't obtain more pills, he might as well just knock his head against the wall and die. As expected of the ancient martial skill light of 9 nether, this was a martial skill used by the Geo-Dragon Emperor. Naturally, it was extraordinary, especially after he cultivated it to perfection. If he could step into the transcendent realm, the effect of this move would be even more shocking. The light of 9 nether cast by the ancient shadow only needed 2 breaths' time for all the black fog to be sucked away by the spatial crack suction force. Therefore, Long Yu had to constantly cast the 9 underworld heavenly light. The 9 underworld heavenly light he cast himself could only last for 3 breaths of time. However, Long Yu still needed time to form seals. Therefore, he could only continuously condense desolate ancient afterimages and let them cast the 9 underworld heavenly light one after another. Fortunately, he had stepped into the Emperor Path's secret realm, otherwise he wouldn't be able to do this. It was precisely because he could continuously cast the light of 9 nether that he was slowly approaching the next hall, that the energy in his body was constantly being consumed. Almost every 20 breaths time, he had to absorb a shadow attribute beast crystal. This made him pay a huge price. Even though he had stored thousands of beast crystals in the Void Spirit Dragon Blade, he couldn't keep up with this kind of consumption. But compared to the pills he was about to obtain, these beast crystals were not even worth mentioning. When Long Yu returned, he spent 50,000 Shinbi to exchange for these 1,000 beast crystals. But if he could obtain one more pill here, it would be worth more than 50 million Shinbi. This was a transaction that was 1,000 times more valuable. Anyone would be willing to do it. Hand seal open. After going through a lot of hardships, Long Yu finally moved forward 100 li and arrived at the 5th hall. Then, he formed a hand seal to cancel the protective formation that stored the pills and grabbed the pill bottle in his hand. Since I'm already here, I can't let go of the 6th and even the 7th hall. As Long Yu cast the light of 9 nether, he flew forward quickly. But this was too much of a consumption. He soon discovered that he had already used up 10 beast crystals by the time he reached the 5th hall. At this rate, he wouldn't have enough beast crystals to take away all the pills. Not to mention, the closer he got to the spatial crack, the stronger the suction force, and the faster his energy would be consumed. Long Yu thought about it and made an extremely bold decision. He gave up on using the light of 9 nether to conceal himself as he advanced. Instead, he directly exposed himself in the palace passageway and was quickly sucked in by the spatial crack suction force. Although it was extremely dangerous, this action allowed him to quickly reach the 6th hall 100 li away. Moreover, he didn't have to spend a single beast crystal. Upon reaching the 6th palace hall, Long Yu reacted quickly. In that instant, he raised his hand and unleashed the 9 underworld heaven light, enveloping the entire palace hall. After that, the desolate ages afterimages condensed and began to take turns to unleash the 9 underworld heaven light. The 9 nether heavenly lights cast by the desolate ancient shadows only needed a breath's time to be completely absorbed. So, Long Yu's consumption in the 6th hall was more than double that of the 5th hall. Fortunately, it only took 3 breaths' time for Long Yu to continue letting go, quickly heading towards the 7th hall. He had already obtained the pill bottle from the 6th hall. Everything had gone smoothly, but he needed to be even more careful. This was because at this point, the suction force from the spatial crack was becoming increasingly strong. By the time he reached the 7th hall, the 9 nether heavenly light that Long Yu's desolate ancient shadows condensed would be completely sucked away by the suction force in half a breath's time. Long Yu's consumption had doubled once more. All that was left of the 7th hall were broken walls. Further ahead was an endless void. He was likely thousands of miles away from the spatial crack, but the suction force was already extremely great. Even the palaces that had been fused with countless first-rate divine rune crystals couldn't resist the suction force of the spatial crack at such a close distance. If Long Yu continued forwards, he wouldn't even be able to condense the 9 nether heavenly light to stop himself from being sucked into the spatial crack. This was because the suction force was far too strong. With his current level of 9 nether heavenly light, it was impossible for him to withstand it. Long Yu was not in the mood to observe the ruins of this palace. After obtaining the elixir from the 7th palace hall, he immediately turned around and flew back to where he came from. At this moment, he could not conserve his energy like he did when he came here. He had to constantly condense divine rune crystals and condense the desolate ancient shadows. Only then could he return step by step and resist the tyrannical suction force of the spatial crack. From the 7th hall to the 6th hall, he had used up a total of 40 beast crystals. From the 6th hall to the 5th hall, he had used up another 20 beast crystals. Finally, from the 5th hall to the safe 4th hall, he had used up 10 beast crystals. In other words, he had obtained 3 pill bottles on this trip, which meant that he had used up 70 beast crystals. If I calculate it like this, then if I want to go through the other 17 entrances, I will need a total of 1,200 beast crystals to restore my strength. I have less than 900 on me right now. It's not enough. But even if it wasn't enough, Long Yu wouldn't stop doing this, because he had really profited greatly this way. He opened the medicine bottle from the 7th palace hall, and immediately, an ancient medicinal fragrance wafted out. With just a sniff, Long Yu felt as if he had been transported to an endless battlefield, watching countless ancient existences constantly killing each other on the battlefield. This was a pill that surpassed the Archean level. Right now, Long Yu couldn't take it anymore. He immediately closed the pill bottle, and this made him even more determined to go to the other entrances and get the pill out of the 7th hall. A pill that surpassed the Archean level. Just what level would it be? Long Yu hadn't heard the Envoy of Death mention it before, but he knew that it definitely existed. A pill that surpassed the Archean level contained spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and it could even be tens of thousands of times that of an Archean level pill. One had to know that there was a difference of 1 level between the Archean and Archean level. And how much stronger would a pill that surpassed the Archean level be compared to an Archean level pill? Not to mention, a pill that surpassed the Archean level could possibly contain some sort of unique effect. This wasn't something that the current Long Yu wouldn't know about. In fact, no one in the entire Shunwu world would know about. A pill that surpassed the primordial grade was a priceless treasure to Long Yu. What did it matter to him to expend a mere 70 exotic beast crystals? Long Yu continued to work, entering the other entrances one after another, going deep into the 7th hall and taking away the pill bottles inside. After 7 days and 7 nights, Long Yu gone through all 10 entrances and obtained another 30 pill bottles. But unfortunately, 6 of them were empty, leaving only 24 pills. Among them, only the pill that Long Yu obtained the first time was a pill that surpassed the Archean level. The other pills in the 7th hall were either Archean level supreme or Archean level supreme level pills. And after 7 days and 7 nights, Long Yu continued to use the 9 underworld heavenly light without stopping, finally allowing this martial skill to achieve another breakthrough. Chapter 838. When Long Yu had used the 9 underworld heavenly light thousands of times, he finally broke through. His whole body trembled. He had finally broken through, breaking through to the transcendent realm. The stability of the 9 underworld heavenly light had increased by 10 times. In other words, if he wanted to disperse the 9 underworld heavenly light, he would need 10 times more power than before. In other words, the suction force of a spatial rift would take 10 times more time to completely absorb the 9 underworld heavenly light. This gave Long Yu an excellent opportunity. If it was before, he wouldn't have had enough elixirs to go through all 18 entrances. But now, there were 8 entrances left. The amount of beast crystals he had to consume was equivalent to one of the previous entrances. I still have 200 beast crystals on me, another 70 at most, and I'll be able to go through all 18 entrances and get all the elixirs in the 7th Palace Hall. Long Yu thought to himself as he sped up. Exploring the previous 10 entrances took Long Yu 7 days and 7 nights. But for the next 8 entrances, Long Yu spent a total of 3 days. When he finally explored all the remaining palaces, he had already obtained 99 elixirs. At the very least, they were ancient supreme grade elixirs. Each of them had different properties. In other words, Long Yu could consume all of them and absorb all of their spiritual energy. 99 elixirs, 70 ancient grade elixirs, 26 immemorial grade elixirs, and 3 transcending immemorial grade elixirs. This is a rich harvest, but if not for the seal provided by the Death Envoy, I wouldn't have been able to obtain these elixirs. In fact, I wouldn't even have gotten one. As Long Yu thought to himself, he flew a little further away from the palace hall and continued to observe it. Soon he thought of something. Since the front of the palace hall stored so many elixirs, what about the back of the palace hall? A spatial rift divided the palace hall into 2. There were a total of 18 rows. The front 18 rows only had 7 palaces left, but what about the back? It'll take about 3 days to bypass the spatial rift and check the back of the palace hall. I can't let go of such a good opportunity. Long Yu made up his mind and began to circle around the spatial rift as fast as he could. He always maintained a certain distance from a spatial rift so that he wouldn't be affected by the suction force of the spatial rift. He continued to circle around the back of the palace. Sure enough, after a little more than 2 days, he finally reached the back of the spatial rift. He found that compared to the relatively intact front of the palace, the back of the palace was like a ruin. Due to the effects of the spatial rift, the entire rear of the palace had been reduced to ruins. However, there were many larger pieces floating in the void. Long Yu directly flew towards the first large portion and discovered that it was indeed a palace hall that stored pills. However, this palace hall was only left with half of it. The pill bottles that should have been placed on the stone pillars had already disappeared without a trace. If the protective array of the elixir was destroyed, it would be very difficult to keep it here. A bottle of elixir was easily sucked away by the spatial crack. Long Yu didn't give up and continued to search for the next large piece of the rear of the palace hall. However, he found a total of more than 30 building ruins, and only one of them had elixirs in good condition. As expected, it's another elixir that surpasses the Archean grade. The elixir stored at the back of the palace hall must be of a higher quality than the elixir stored at the front. It's a pity that the entire back of the palace hall is in ruins. Most of the elixirs have been sucked into the spatial rift. Long Yu was quite happy to obtain the 100th elixir, because the aura of this elixir was even thicker than the aura of the 3 elixirs that surpassed the Archean grade. It was clearly of a higher quality. As for the specific grade, Long Yu couldn't identify it, because elixirs of this grade were beyond his imagination. It was naturally difficult to identify something he had never seen before. However, Long Yu wasn't in a hurry. As long as he found the Death Envoy, he could easily identify these elixirs. As for now, he couldn't casually consume them in case something went wrong. The entire storage palace had been plundered clean by Long Yu. At this moment, it had already been close to a month since Long Yu had entered the ancient ruins. Even though he had the seal imparted to him by the Death Envoy, it still took him so much time. This was because the ruins of the ancient small world were just too big. Next, Long Yu didn't wander around, but waited at the entrance of the palace hall. He was obviously waiting for those fellows from the Shenluo Empire. When Long Yu first opened this ancient ruins, there was a restriction on entry. Only cultivators below the Great Emperor realm could enter. However, Long Yu heard from the Death Envoy that there was a control core in the ruins of the small world. That core could be controlled to relax the entry requirements of the small world, allowing Great Emperor realm experts to enter. Long Yu was like a fish in water in the ruins of the small world. How could he be satisfied with dealing with those Emperor realm experts? Moreover, if he didn't deal with the Great Emperor realm experts outside, Long Yu wouldn't be able to escape back to the holy city of the 5 emperors alive. Therefore, all of his actions were planned. Right now, he was waiting at the entrance of the storage palace. He knew that there were many Emperor realm cultivators here who could track his location. Sooner or later, those people would come to Long Yu. As for whether they would run to other places and cause trouble, Long Yu wasn't worried at all. Everything in the ruins of the small world needed to be controlled by the seal. Without the seal, it was impossible to obtain anything from the small world. Other than the palace hall, the other place Long Yu wanted to go was the pill refining room. However, according to his calculations, those Emperor realm experts should be here soon. Wait, Long Yu cultivated the Dubhe Chi drawing technique as he waited. What surprised him was that he could actually sense the aura of the Dubhe stars in the wreckage of this small world. From there, he could cultivate the Dubhe Chi drawing technique. His Dubhe Chi drawing technique was about to step into the transcendent state, but he still couldn't break through. He didn't know why, but once he stepped into the transcendent state, his cultivation speed would once again increase explosively. About 5 days later, Long Yu finally sensed the presence of several living beings from the distant void. They were the auras of Emperor realm experts. They're here. Long Yu opened his eyes and stopped cultivating. He turned around to face the palace and pretended that he'd just arrived. He stepped into one of the entrances. His figure flashed by and just happened to fall into the eyes of a few Emperor realm cultivators who had arrived at the scene. There were 5 mid-Emperor realm cultivators and 3 late Emperor realm cultivators. 2 of them were demon cultivators. As soon as they saw the enormous palace that had been split in half by the spatial rift, they sensed a figure flash past the palace entrance. "It's that brat, after him." The eyes of the 8 Emperor realm cultivators lit up. They'd chased after Long Yu for more than a month in this desolate small world and hated him to the bone. Now that they saw a majestic-looking palace, they just happened to see Long Yu's figure, which immediately raised their spirits. We finally caught up. Moreover, this was probably the deepest part of the small world. If there were any treasures in this place, they would definitely be hidden here. The 8 of them rushed towards the palace as fast as they could. They quickly chose the entrance that Long Yu had entered and cautiously chased after him. Although they had a great advantage in martial Dao compared to Long Yu, who was only at the mid-Emperor realm, they were still very cautious. There were many secrets in the ancient ruins. Long Yu might have set up some kind of trap for them, since he'd arrived here before them. But their eyes lit up very quickly because they'd arrived at the first hall and saw an extremely exquisite and simple medicine bottle on the stone platform at the center of the hall. A pill. The 8 of them grew excited at the same time, but none of them dared to advance rashly because they hadn't seen Long Yu's figure. The scene in front of them was simply too strange. Long Yu was the first to enter, but he was nowhere to be seen. What appeared in front of them was a bottle of pills. If the pills were so easy to obtain, why hadn't Long Yu taken them? Therefore, they were both overjoyed and on high alert. Those who could cultivate to the mid or late Emperor realm in this world couldn't be rash idiots. But they soon relaxed, because they saw Long Yu appear in the palace where the elixirs were, and he was quickly fleeing towards the back. After him, the 8 of them made a decision at the same time. Since Long Yu had appeared in the hall, it was obvious that there wasn't any danger in the hall. They could chase after him without worry. As long as they killed Long Yu first, they could explore the ruins without worry. However, by the time the 3 of them arrived at the first palace hall, Long Yu had already left the first palace hall and was heading towards the passageway between the first and second palace halls. Then, he formed a hand seal with his back to everyone. The pill protective formation that had been shut down was activated once again. 3 beams of white light instantly shot out and shone on the 3 Emperor Realm martial cultivators who were charging at the front. Immediately, an incomparably terrifying force tore the 3 Emperor Realm martial cultivators into pieces. They didn't even have a chance to resist. The other 5 who'd wanted to rush in immediately stopped in their tracks. They looked at the place where the 3 Emperor Realm martial cultivators had been annihilated by the white light in shock and bewilderment. They were drenched in cold sweat. Of the 3 who'd been annihilated, only one was a late-stage King Realm martial cultivator. The other 2 were early-stage King Realm martial cultivators who were relatively faster. As for the other 2 late-stage King Realm martial cultivators, they'd been more cautious and had purposely slowed down their speed. What's going on? The remaining 5 looked at each other in dismay, before turning their gazes towards Long Yu. They subconsciously felt that it was definitely Long Yu who was behind them. However, when they looked at Long Yu, they discovered that Long Yu also had a bewildered expression on his face. It was obvious that he hadn't expected such a thing to happen here. They saw a layer of joy in the depths of Long Yu's eyes. He seemed to be glad that the beams of light hadn't appeared when he passed through the hall. Of course, this was Long Yu's disguise. Life is like a play, and it all depends on acting skills. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.